Our march for the championship continues with the playoffs finally on the spot, where tonight 10 drivers look to fight for championship glory, and it all starts right here. Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the first playoff race of the 2021 4 Wide Racing Cup Series season, as we bring it to you here from the Virginia Commonwealth right here on MaxSpeedTV. Always happy that you're with us alongside Francisco Bacalhau. My name is Kenneth Bueno for all the action, and Francisco, we stoop forward to the first race of the playoffs. For the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about it over and over again. Which drivers are going to go in, which drivers are going to get out, how the point situation is going to find itself through, and we finally get here. We've racked up all the 10 drivers, and now it all starts here from Richmond Raceway to get it all done and get this championship sealed.
Happy to be here, Kenneth, and you mentioned it. It's the first race of the playoffs, so this is where the fight for the championship will begin. We have, I think, 10 drivers battling it out, so tonight is going to be crucial in making that first step to get into that top 5 in points over the next 4 or 5 races in order to battle for the championship in Charlotte.
It's definitely going to be big, and it all is going to begin right here. So this is going to be the first step if you're these drivers to even get anywhere close to these playoffs. But if we're going to talk about where the playoffs are, we're going to have to talk about the Richmond Raceway, the first step to get to it, and we'll take a look overhead as to where we are in the virtual world via our track map with images courtesy of Google Earth. Step down to Henrico County, Virginia, the 0.75 mile oval here in the Virginia Commonwealth Richmond Raceway, 1.21 kilometers, located, of course, in Henrico County, Virginia, not too far from Richmond itself, banking at about 14 degrees in the turns, with about 8 degrees on the trioval, and a length, or at least a slow 2 degrees on the back straightaway. Track opened all the way back in 1946, and also, if you can see it, start-finish line, although it sort of feels like it's right dead in the middle of the track, it is not. It's actually very closer to turn 4 than it is to turn 1. But coming to this venue, Francisco, knowing how tough it is, I think for many drivers, and we already experienced a handful of at least abrasive short tracks for the most part. You talk about places like Dover, we talked about Bristol a couple weeks ago, and now we head to Richmond. This is the first time these guys visit this track all season long. How is it going to be for these drivers knowing that it's one, a new track on the schedule that we have yet to see so far, and two, that it's a part of the playoffs.
Well, new tracks are always tough to come by because you have no real track time with it, with the league settings that everybody runs. So it's always getting used to it. It's going to be quite difficult early on, but as the race progresses, they're going to start learning what the track's doing, what the tires are doing, and they'll drive accordingly. Though it being also the first race of the playoffs provides a lot of challenges to these playoff drivers because of what I mentioned and the added benefactor of the playoff intensity, knowing that you have to have a good start because otherwise it'll really put you in a hole the rest of the way, and you do not want to do that because you're constantly putting pressure on yourself in order to have the performances that you need in order to make up the gap, let alone be in the minimum points requirement to make that top 5. So it's going to be a tough night for some of these guys, and others will be able to will hopefully be able to perform without any issues. And I don't wish any bad luck on any of these playoff drivers, but that comes with the playoffs and the playoff format that we do race with. So we'll have to see just who's able to make it out alive, I guess, by the end of the night.
We'll see who does, but you're seeing the drivers lined up double file behind the iRacing official pace car, and that means it is our time to take a look at your starting grid and see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight for the first playoff race of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. On pole will be the 52 of Dalton Tucker, the first time we see him on a racetrack here this season. The 52 lines up at 21.387. To nab the full pole, he'll be the first driver to see the green flag alongside the 4 of Kyle Benson, playoff leader, going to start the outside of your first row to the green flag.
Greg Lautensanger, a playoff driver in that 3rd spot on the inside of that 2nd row, and alongside him, Scott Healy, who's seems to have caught a little bit of momentum over the last couple of races, winning 2 and finishing 2nd at Daytona. Also in the playoffs, will line up on the 4th position, 2nd outside.
Back to row 3, you'll find the 20 of Edward Schurer lining up the top 5, and Austin Reedy in the 11 trying to recapture some of that short track success. He lines up in the 6th position.
Following row, you see Tyler B. Murray in that 8th, in the 7th position in the number 8 car, followed by Justin Mons in the 41, who we've seen up front in several of the races that he's been in. He's going to try and play some spoiler here tonight.
Joe Sanchez in the 55 will line up your 5th row with Shane Wyatt to his outside in the 70 car. Going to take a look through the rest of your grid. There's Nicholas Suzuki, playoff driver, in 11th. Pete Bruni will be on his outside to 12th with Jesse Prize and Tyler Werner to round out your 7th row. Matthew Jorgensen and Ricky Rosner all the way back to 16th with Brandon Gillis. Christopher Bishop to the 18th spot. Bishop, remember, was one of the drivers to point his way in from Daytona last Wednesday night. Dustin Webb in 73 and Robert Parrott in the 6th will be all the way to 20th. And then Cole Shagru, Mark Brannigan Jr. will be to 22nd to row 11. Eric Schaffer, Cody Kinsey to row 12. And lining up the final row, and at least half a row, Roman Long in the 14 will be in row 13 in the 25th position. That's everybody here from the Richmond Raceway. A little bit talk about the weather before we get started. Temperature about 68 degrees. Track temperature about a hair higher at 71 degrees. And no humidity here. We've got winds to the west at about 5 miles per hour. It is currently partly cloudy here tonight, so we won't necessarily have any weather issues. Track temperature probably won't be too big of a concern, considering the fact that we don't have the sun anywhere in sight. We'll probably have some extra grip here with the high horsepower and low downforce package. We'll have a Chevrolet Camaro and Dalton Tucker, Kyle Benson on the outside leading us through. I think we're going to see a lot of non-playoff drivers and even new drivers we've seen in this series, Francisco, try to put their foot in the ring and see exactly what they can do. Try to get a win if they want to, put some momentum on their shoulders, and maybe for next season, try to go for a win or maybe even a championship moving down the line. Tucker and Benson, your first row pace cars down at pit road. We are green flag racing from the Richmond Raceway.
And a good start by Benson there. You see he's able to work the top a little bit better, and he's going to take the lead off of turn number 2. Actually, look at Dalton Tucker trying to battle back on the inside, and that's something we saw, Kenneth, in the most recent iRacing build, that the outside at Richmond does work a little bit better. You see him go close to the wall, so they're still side by side as we complete lap number 1.
Lap 1 complete, but it is still side by side between the two leaders. Benson trying to work up high while Tucker moves down low. The pass will be complete for now into turn 3. Tucker in the 52 with the advantage. He'll dive to the yellow line. And for now, as of lap 2, Dalton Tucker, your pole sitter, is going to be the leader. Kyle Benson going to try and swarm behind with Scott Healy moving to 3rd. Austin Reedy, Craig Laumsager to round out your top 5 at the moment. So many drivers spreading around the track, but in the first opening laps, Francisco, you kind of have to set yourself in a rhythm right now, and I figure that's what many of these drivers will do, and if you got the track position, it's better to take it for now, especially as a playoff driver, as Scott Healy tries to put the pressure on the driver in front.
Yeah, it's a long night, and track position is going to matter at a track like Richmond with the dirty air, and with the way you have to run this racetrack, you see cars going all over the place. That does make it a little bit tough to pass. You can defend your positions very easily, though, because if you can just run the top like you see Kyle Benson here, it provides a good means of defense against anybody else, because you get the runs off the corner, and then you end up in square one like this, where Healy's just behind him. So if Healy does get side by side, he's going to be at a disadvantage, but if he's able to get one or two good corners and start edging in front of that fourth, and roll that bottom well enough to clear him, that's exactly where the bottom will become in handy. But otherwise, the outside lane is going to be the place to be when you're in a battle.
It definitely is, and right now he's still trying to work the inside of Benson, but so far to no avail. Benson able to hold off, and Scott Healy, we talked about him a couple times. He's won at short tracks here this season, given 2 race wins, one at Dover earlier, which he had to fight Benson for on fuel strategy, and of course the win, a dominating one in fact, at the Phoenix Raceway, just in the penultimate regular season race, but Healy gets a little loose, the rear tires go spinning, he goes right to the inside grass, goes for a stunt jump as well, but we have no yellow flag on the racetrack. He's going to lose all that track position and maybe some tires as everybody tries to go around him. That could have been disastrous for the driver of that 64.
Yeah, just as you were talking about the 2 race wins he had previously attained at tracks with this regular package, he just lost the rear end right there, and that's the tough part when you have that small spoiler. You're trying to plant the throttle down, and it'll easily come around. From what I've done in testing here, turn 2 is a little bit more difficult because you transition to the flat part of the track, but here it's deceiving because of that wide arc that you see the front straightaway has. So you try to put the power down, get close to that wall, but the back end will just step out on you. And that's the unfortunate circumstance that could happen to Healy. The fortunate thing is he was able to keep it straight. He didn't really light up the tires too bad, and he was able to keep pointing in the right direction. I don't think he's running last on the racetrack, and he kept the car in one piece. So no damage on that 64. So he escaped he escaped one basically.
Well, it certainly did. But right now he rides 19th, so he lost all of that track position. He's gonna have a whale of a time trying to go on that uphill climb and go back up to the front. He sits behind a battle between Brandon Gillis and Eric Schaffer. Maybe bring along Cody Kinsey to the mix. Some 3 cars in here for 16th on back, so a lot of them trying to get their positions very early. None of those drivers, by the way, are playoff drivers, apart from Scott Healy himself, as they were not able to manage themselves in the playoffs. Healy, though, able to get by, so he's up to 18th on the racetrack. But at the moment, many drivers trying to separate themselves, and I think already for the moment, Francisco, we're mostly seeing drivers having a little bit of trouble going through some of these corners because, again, Richmond, a fairly low bank track. You're carrying a lot of speed in these corners, yes, but you don't have a lot of the banking to keep that speed going. So you have to slow the car down, but you also have to try and arc the car in a way that it could be at least fair, or at least noticeable to get out comfortably at the exits of the corners. And we're going to see that happen over the course of the night. But as of right now, caution flag waves. It's our first one of the evening, and it might have involved the Roman Long Kosher Gru, who's now in the pit lane. As Roman Long seems as maybe a little bit of damage to his Chevrolet Camaro, but doesn't seem to be anything too drastic. We'll see if he was a part of this incident all the way near the rear of the race course. You'll see it here. Roman Long was riding in front of a couple of the drivers. That's Christopher Bishop, and Bishop just dove it way in. Gives him the send, gives him the bump, and around he goes to the safer barrier.
Yeah, that was a bit uncharacteristic for lap 13. We'll get a better view here as they roll down the front straightaway. You see the 42 a little bit further back than the 14, and I don't know if he just misjudged his braking point or if something happened before this that the 42 didn't like, but you saw he did not make the corner on the inside lane whatsoever. So I'm not so sure. You see the car just went straight into the corner. I don't want to insinuate anything, but I mean, it is lap number 13, so I hope that nothing bad came out of that resulted in this incident.
Well, it seems as though just a little bit of damage for Roman Long, but I don't think it'll be too detrimental for him, as he'll be able to go down pit road and get some of that fixed. Remember, these guys do have fast repairs available to them, so if they do get damage over the course of tonight's action, they can burn that fast repair, get a clean race car, and they could be on their way back out. We did have a split down pit road 3 cars did not decide to go down pit road on lap 14. It seemed as though Dalton Tucker, Kyle Benson, pretty much everybody behind them mostly decided to go down for service for 4 fresh tires and fuel. Austin Reedy, Craig Launsauger, and Scott Healy are the 3 drivers that did not decide to go down pit road. So I think a fairly early call here, Francisco. I don't believe this is going to be maybe too detrimental considering the fact that they don't have tire sets, and I know this is a long race, but the fuel right now isn't really a concern because of just the short length we've got around this racetrack. So does this make anything any different with this call by these 3?
I think they're probably anticipating that this race will probably have a higher than average amount of cautions, and if that's the case, then fuel probably won't be at the top of their minds, considering they'll be able to come down pit road and fill the tank up once again. Though, now that we are on the topic of that, the fuel window for this race, I believe, will be somewhere around the 70 laps mark. I believe it'll be around 70 laps that these guys will be able to run on a full tank that they have available to them. So being on lap 15 right now, they'd be able to go about another 55, maybe 60 laps now that they have this caution to be able to save some fuel. So not too concerning early on, maybe just trying to see what the strategy call is like to be on older tires. And the tires don't wear too much when you're about 10 to 15 laps on them. They'll probably hold up well for the first couple of laps, but
we'll see how they do as everybody maintains themselves behind the pace car, lap number 16. I think for now, it'll give us a good moment to take a look at your current point standings, see exactly where every single driver started from this race. These are the 10, or at least in this case, the 9. I believe we forgot one of the drivers, but they are in it. I believe Roman Long, or one of the drivers that we are missing, is in this fight for the playoffs, but this is kind of just a look, a reference as to where each driver is and which drivers are which. I don't believe any of them have any playoff banners for now, so we can't necessarily categorize them by their banners or any of the windshields or the spoilers or the splitters or anything around that nature. So I think we may have to try and implement that, at least let you know which drivers are which. But I guess for any reference to the audience here, front row are playoff drivers, Austin Reedy and Craig Launsauger, these 2 fighting for the title, as Launsauger going to go for the inside. Austin Reedy, though, on the pole for this restart, he will be on the outside. A very interesting decision. We'll see if it works for the driver of the 11. Pace car goes down pit road. We're ready for a restart here on lap number 17 or lap number 18 at 267. Austin Reedy's on the gas. We're back on the green.
A solid start from him on that outside lane. We'll look to see if anybody chooses that later on in the race. You see Scott Healy up front in this restart. He was one of those people that stayed out to get back some of that track position he previously lost. And right now, Reedy's gone, and they're side by side for the back.
And they are way side by side, about 2 rows deep, because there's Kyle Benson now diving underneath Dalton Tucker. Remember, they've got the fresh tires, so they are ready to pounce when that opportunity is there. You're right on board with the 64 of Scott Healy. Tries to dug his nose in for a second. He'll have it for the moment as they reach the back straightaway. Still no clear-cut decision as to who's in front between these 2. I think right now they're holding these guys up. They want to get by on the fresh power or the fresh tire power, but they can't really because the drivers on the oldest set right now still hold on as a gridlock as Austin Reedy runs away from the field right now.
Oh, watch out for Mons. He had a little bit of a lock if you saw the tire smoke there, and you see now he's in the middle of 3 wide and nearly got into Kyle Benson, and now he's going to lose a couple of spots there to Tucker, who's now trying to get to the outside for position right there, and he's still looking there. Healy start, and these 2 are really holding off. Benson's going to try and take it 3 wide.
Benson gonna go for 3, but at the moment, I think they slowly have settled themselves through as Dalton Tucker moves his way to the outside. He'll take over second for now as they head back to turn 3. Edward Scher trying to fend off a handful of his own. You see the 55 machine, Joe Sanchez, Justin Mons. There's Scott Healy having a wheel with his race car off turn 4. And back to turn 1, Edward Scher will have that position. This has only allowed Austin Reedy to run away, but maybe not for long, as here comes Dalton Tucker on the fresh tires to the inside.
You saw they were able to hold on well, especially when they were side by side, but eventually the tires will make the difference that they're able to, and right now the 52 is most likely going to clear for position here in 1 and 2.
He's going to, so new race leader once again, Dalton Tucker, the pole sitter, taking back the race lead. Many of these drivers, though, Francisco, we have not seen throughout competition, or at least throughout 2021. A lot of these drivers fairly newer entries into this series, so they may play a big factor into how this race will portray itself out, because we do have a battle for the playoffs looming in. Kyle Benson, though, seemingly not yet able to get very close to Austin Reedy. He's been able to gather some momentum, but he has yet to really get himself around with the power that Dalton Tucker had when he went in turn 3. As they will slow down, the position will not be decided as a caution flag will wave, and it may have involved here Brandon Gillis, maybe Christopher Bishop, a couple of drivers a little bit slow behind. There's Pete Bruni with a heap of damage on his 08, and there's even more damage to Ricky Rosner. New paint scheme here tonight. There's the one of Jesse Price, or at least the 0 on the car for the moment. He's got the damage. We'll try and see exactly where this began. Believe it may happen around, actually, that was the back straightaway. Francisco, Pete Bruni, and a handful of others involved as they head to the 2 degrees there.
Yeah, it looked like, yeah, he just lost it right there off of turn 2. I was talking about that when the incident with Scott Healy happened. You see right there trying to run that bottom. He's on the apron, and it gets sideways on the entire time, and he's never able to correct it. You see the traffic has nowhere to go, and they run right into him. So unfortunate for some of these guys here. I'm not sure who may have towed there. I don't think anyone did, but just a lot of damage on some of these parts. They may have to use that fast repair in certain cases, which you don't want to have to do on lap 26 of 267.
You definitely don't. As you see, there was where the damage coincided there with Brandon Gillis. He was trying to slow down. Jesse Price went back up the racetrack, and that's the contact between the car and the outside safer barrier. That's exactly what gave Brandon Gillis all of this damage. So that's, if we were wondering what happened with Gillis, it's exactly what went down on the back straightaway. He's going to get his fast repair for the moment. Only driver to stay out on this stop will be the 8 of Tyler Murray. And I think he had a lot of fun last Wednesday night, Francisco, to say the least. Winner at the Daytona International Speedway, winner in the final regular season race. And I think a lot of momentum to carry off. He was already a playoff driver, so all the points he accrued over the season definitely helped his case for this run of the championship. But to start Richmond off, especially off a win at Daytona last week, I'm sure that feels pretty good for the driver of the 8.
Any win you can get is momentum, and in his case, Daytona's win was a lot of momentum for it being Daytona, but also it being the last race of the regular season. So you come into the playoffs being the most recent winner of anybody, that's a lot of momentum to carry. Of course, Richmond, a difficult racetrack, completely different to Daytona in its own way with its challenges and the way you have to drive the racetrack, but it is still momentum, and this 8 probably feeling confident after that win. He's going to try and do some different strategy here to see if he can place himself in some pretty decent track position, as we saw some of these other guys who stayed out in the last caution catch a fortunate yellow here and gain some track position due to it.
Well, caution waves once again here at Richmond. I believe this is our second caution of the evening. Remember our last short track race. I believe our last one was at Bristol Motor Speedway, but we've had a fair share of short track events, most notably at the Dover International Speedway, the Iowa Speedway, the Martinsville Speedway. We've had lots of short track racing throughout 2021, so at least for the most part, these guys have been fairly seasoned with the short tracks. And if one driver stands out, I believe guys like Craig Launsarger, guys like Scott Healy, those guys may have to stand out a little bit more than others. Kyle Benson has been kind of flirting with a short track victory, but he has just yet to get it. How about a brand new paint scheme here by the 75 of Nicholas Fizzuti? We've seen him on Ford Performance colors, and under the lights, this car is probably the most notable out of it all. The prancing horse, Ford Mustang on the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, it's the darkness of the car matches really the sort of nighttime feel you have for the racetrack. So it's nice to see that scheme is running. You see right there, right in front of him, the 55 with the Sherwin-Williams colors, the red, white, and blue just coming off Memorial Day weekend. That's also a good-looking scheme right there. So a lot of nice paint jobs here tonight. We see a William Byron Exalta red, white, and blue right there with your second-place runner, Dalton Tucker. So a lot of good schemes here tonight, Kenneth.
And a lot of beautiful schemes, many commemorating in the Memorial Day weekend with the red, white, and blue. Others just with their regular paint schemes. I see Wreck-It Reedy, Austin Reedy, with a brand new looking race car, but it is the Tracker Boats Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet Camaro. Tyler Murray, he's going to be up and away. We're back in our green at lap 30.
Another solid start from the outside lane, though the 52 will have a little bit of an advantage as they go deep into turn 1, way up the track. probably going to lose the lead here to the 52, and they're 3 wide for second, almost into the wall. And here comes the 4 of Kyle Benson squeezing to the outside to try and use his new tires to get up to the 52.
Remember, all of these guys on the fresh tires here, so they are going to blow by Tyler Murray in about no time. So the leaders go around, but one driver has gone around on the front straightaway. Believe I might have seen some speck of yellow out of the race car. We'll try to see exactly who it was as the field spreads around.
Austin Reedy.
And it may have been Austin Reedy who went around on his own accord. Indeed he does to the front straightaway. Seems to be no damage, but iRacing constitutes it as a yellow flag as he was spinning. So maybe a similar situation to what we saw with Scott Healy a little bit earlier on tonight. Just instead of no yellows, it is actually a yellow thrown out on the racetrack. Here's a look at the replay coming off turn 4. Reedy was riding third. And again, Francisco Carr just steps out. The car loses control and then just goes spinning.
Yeah, premature burnout there for the 11 just comes around on him, and it just stays going around and around and around in a spin cycle. And it was unfortunate because he stayed out the last caution and gained some track position and was looking to make some decent work of it, but that's all going to get undone here. Fortunately, no damage on that race car. Just come in, get a set of tires, and try and work your way up through the field and regain that lost track position.
Well, he's going to be 21st, and he is stepping down pit road, so I think some fresh tires after a spin that probably completely shot those tires would help his case and maybe help him on the way to get more positions if he's at least a lap or two fresher than the rest of the field. So it's not a surprise to see almost nobody down pit road right now, apart from, of course, Austin Reedy and maybe a handful of others, because they just pitted 7 laps ago, and most of those laps are ran under yellow. And only about a couple of them, maybe 1 or 2, happening under the green flag. So Dalton Tucker continues to lead this field. Kyle Benson second, with Justin Mons in third. Craig Launsager in fourth. Joe Sanchez lining up the top 5. And again, as we were talking about brand new paint schemes for tonight's action, here's the 13 of Launsager with a brand new paint scheme of his own with a U.S. Navy looking. I think this is a tribute to a fighter jet, at least from what I can see on this Toyota Camry. The driver of the 13 paying respects, of course, to Memorial Day weekend, which happened a couple days ago, or Memorial Day proper on Monday, just 2 days ago. So it's good to see a lot of these drivers sporting the red, white, and blue, and also giving the respect to the armed forces and the veterans, and the people that sacrifice for us to be free in this country, and allows us to do things like this and broadcast on the iRacing Sim. One of the gorgeous colors here, Francisco, I'd say, out of the driver of the 13. I like a lot of the new schemes that we're seeing for the playoffs.
Yeah, a lot of good-looking ones, and if there's anyone I'd like to see as far as commemorating any of the armed forces or anything like that, would be an Air Force derived scheme from a P-51 Mustang. I think that's one of the great fighter planes of World War II that I personally have liked. I'm not sure if you know which one in particular that one is, but that's definitely one of my favorite World War II planes.
I don't think I can say that I know it per se, because I know I'm not that much of an airplane connoisseur, I think, as you are. I think you know a lot more than I do, but I have the respect for all the planes. Those are gorgeous planes. I think anytime you can see them, anytime they're somewhere, you can always appreciate them. I think I have that appreciation, although I don't necessarily have too much knowledge on which ones they are. But nonetheless, still a gorgeous paint scheme. We're seeing him riding in the top 4, so we'll see how his train up to the front could go in. Remember, Glaunsauger is a playoff driver, so all of these will account for points at the end of tonight's race. And when we move forward into the rest of the playoff events, we'll have those points moving forward. It's going to mean very big numbers when we get to Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll dumb it down to about 5 drivers, and then we'll have ourselves a run for the championship. Lights are out, though, on the iRacing official pace car, so Dalton Tucker going to choose the outside lane from the front row. Kyle Benson will be underneath him, so similar front row that what you saw to start this race on lap 1. Craig Launsager and Justin Mons will be behind them, followed by Scott Healy and the 55 of Joe Sanchez to row number 3. We'll move up to the top 10, Tyler Warner, Mark Brannigan Jr., Nicholas Vizzuti, and the 93 of Cody Kinsey. Oh, we'll see if we got a yellow flag this time by Francisco. I think over and under how many laps we'll have?
5.
Say 5?
5.
Well, at least we'll try to see if it's 5 or maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Green flag will come out and restart lap 37. Dalton Tucker up and away. Probably one of the best restarts we've seen out of the race leader so far. And Tucker will dive into turn 1 with the whole field spanning behind him.
The outside seems to be very advantageous on these restarts. I think the leader is most likely going to choose the outside here on out, as we've seen them be able to get clear of the inside lane Kyle Benson settling into that second position. Lautensager up to third, trying to hold off Justin Mons back there. Scott Healy rounding out the top 5. So a lot of these guys starting to try and get single file, hopefully go more than 5 laps without a yellow.
And so far, most of the field single file. We're seeing a lot of the trouble spots happen at least around 2 portions of the racetrack. One out of turn 2, as Scott Healy almost has a moment. He has to save his Chevrolet Camaro from going around at the exit of turn 2. That's a place I think, Francisco, we're going to be watching over the course of tonight's action. I'm sure that we're not accustomed to seeing spins off turn 4, but you can get a little bit too eager on the throttle, I'd say, with these Cup cars. You don't have a lot of downforce, so the rear tires are going to start spinning. You don't have really the grip mechanically on the race car to account for it, so of course the car is going to spin around. But that exit of turn 2, that shift between the 14 degrees of banking in the corner and the 2 degrees on the back straightaway, that's going to be the most treacherous, because you're going to get a transition from the banking to basically an almost directly flat surface. So you see here with Tyler Warner, you're right on board with him. Right there's sort of a crest you have to cover over to turn 2. Then you go back up the hill to slide back into the banking in turns 3 and 4. And then, of course, you have more banking on the tri-oval, which then makes it a lot easier to navigate the throttle with this corner on the front straightaway than it is with the back straightaway. You'll take a listen here with Tyler Warner and see how difficult it is to get around Richmond Raceway. The driver, the 33, sitting at the 9th spot.
And what you'll notice from being on board with Tyler Warner is that it's a little bit more difficult to brake into turn 1 than it is turn 3, because you're braking and turning at the same time. You have that little crest on the front straightaway that you're trying to turn with. As you see, now we're on the inside of his camera. We see he's trying to control that car as they're going on the front straightaway. And it's not a straight front straightaway, so it's more of a front curve. And it's very difficult to lose the back end on that curve of the front straightaway. It's actually a lot more lighter than you may anticipate, and that caused a lot of wheel spin. I've heard Joey Logano one time say that in the real life NASCAR Cup Series, you can probably not even get full throttle until just past the start-finish line, especially when it's hot and slick here. So it's a more difficult part of the racetrack than it gets recognition for, and that's one of the examples that I can find of it.
Now, Richmond, not a very easy place to get around as you watch the Sherwin-Williams number 55. That's Joe Sanchez trying to take a peek at our Justin Mons. These guys have been side by side for about 3 laps or so, and then you'll see a driver sporting some rather familiar either numbers or colors paint scheme wise here on the 38 machine. You'll see the Anthony Alfredo numbers, but if you see that big green egg sponsorship, you're probably going to think about a specific driver in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. I believe Michael Guest on his team is one of those drivers, but before it was Eric J. Smith in his machine, his 9 machine that he piloted in the Coke Series, respectively. Good to see the colors of big green egg right here on this Ford Mustang, as he has a moment there. These guys up ahead are really having a tough battle right now. Sanchez trying to make the most out of the inside, but with the multiple cruisers seeing over the course of this run, Francisco, the 41 cannot get away, and neither can the 55.
Yeah, like I said, the outside's going to be the place to be when you're in a battle. You just get so much momentum off the corner. You're able to, if you get a good enough run, you're able to just hold position consistently. But right there, the 55 had a good enough corner. They're going to be straight with each other going into this one. If the 55 can get clear, he's going to have to take it, but he won't. Advantage back to the 41.
And again, they'll stay side by side, but in turn, they're allowing these guys up the road to kind of walk away, make some gaps noticeable. Scott Healy in the 4th spot. He's pouncing on the 13 to Craig Lautensager. You see him run a little bit higher in turns 3 and 4. He's almost all the way up to the wall, but he wants to get that run out of the corner specifically so that he can build it up and get around Lautensager in time. Top 2, though, have separated by about 1.5 seconds. You see Kyle Benson running the top in 1 and 2, and there's the distance between himself and the 52 of Dalton Tucker, who continues to lead this race all the way to lap number 50. As a result, we're going to take a look at an update of one of the drivers who did go around a little bit earlier. Austin Riddy in the 11th machine. He's worked his way up to 13th, so we're going to see him slowly crawl his way up to the field. He's got some fresher tires, so that has also helped his case, but he's kind of stalled right now in the midst of the top 15. Austin Riddy, one of those drivers, Francisco, that we see strong in a lot of venues. The only thing he just doesn't have is that race win. He's yet to take it down, and the short tracks, at least from what we've seen on a trend, has been the best places that or at least to giving them the best opportunities to win these types of races right now.
He actually won Bristol. He won.
Oh
the
yes,
Bristol
he
race.
did win Bristol, but a lot of other short tracks he's had a lot of sort of success and then sort of failure at the same time.
Yeah, it's not really been his strong suit as far as the luck's concerned, because otherwise he's shown the speed and the performances. So the luck has not really been with him in most of these races, but we have seen him up front. Tonight has already had its fair share of problems, but we saw the speed he was able to show by running up front. You see right in front of him the Alex Bowman paint scheme with the Rowdy Energy colors of Edward Scherner. Alex Bowman won here when they came here in the NASCAR Cup Series. Maybe that luck with the scheme transitions to him here. Slowly trying to work his way through and being patient with it, knowing that there's still over 200 laps left in this race. So nothing crazy, no strong inputs to be making nice and smooth. Just letting the car and the track come to him, and he's starting to make up that time. And you see right there, just in front of him, the 55 of Sanchez, just in front of him. That will be for the 6th spot. In front of him, we see the 41 of Justin Hans, who did lose out to one of the cars in front of him. I forgot who it was. But the top two, or rather the top three, are gone from this group. Second and third, you see right there, Lawton Song. Actually, that's third and fourth, my bad. That's Scott Healy and the 13 of Lawton Song are battling for position right now. That is third. Benson in front of those two, about a second and a half ahead of them. And then you have Tucker, who's about 2 seconds clear of them. So a lot of separation at the front of the field right now, but it's not without its battles. Oh. Oh, we got a crash, turn 4. Started here. Okay. Yeah, and this is a tough part of the racetrack to avoid a wreck. We saw it in the 2016 race here when Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman got into it on this very part of the racetrack. When the cars slide up the track like this, it just, you have nowhere to go. It's just, you have to go within about a 2-lane difference on the corner entry there. And when you're trying to avoid a wreck, you're trying to guess where the cars are going to go and where they're going to end up. And it's, if you guess wrong, that's what happens.
First, Scott Healy will be to third. Tyler Warner going to be the only driver to stay out. Actually, now he's going to hit pit road, so I believe he may have second-guessed his decision or possibly missed pit road the last time by. So he's going to go out once more as Tucker will, in turn, take over the race lead. Scott Healy will be behind him. Then we'll have a couple more drivers behind as Craig Lansauger, Kyle Benson. Actually, a nice pass, though, down pit road by the 64 of Healy. So although he didn't have it in terms of the speed as they're all separated, he's going to have it well through pit road. I think something that we may end up seeing here, Francisco, as well, is these passes down pit road. They're going to be very crucial. I talked about Alex Bowman, the way he captured the win at this very track not too long ago in the Real Life NASCAR Cup Series. Pit road can get you very far, and if they put you in the right spot, you could be able to get up to the front and potentially lead, potentially win, if that's the case.
Pit road is just as important as the racing on the racetrack. It's what gives you position when you're pitting under caution like we are now, or it gains you time when you pit under green. And sometimes, as much as it gets mentioned, it probably doesn't still get mentioned enough how much pit road does make a difference as far as winning and losing races. It's a team sport, and everything culminates as for winning races. You on the racetrack, the team on the pit box. So a lot of stuff goes into it, and pit road very crucial. 1 second of a difference can be the difference between lining up first and lining up fourth.
So that puts Scott Healy to second. A lot of drivers just staying single file, as there's the 0 of Jesse Prize and the 14 of Roman Long with significant damage. And I believe he had already burned up his fast repair, so we'll try to check on it and see if that is the case. But for the 14, he's been putting around with the damage. Actually, he has not burned the fast repair, so he's still waiting for it. But I think right now he's going to elect to stay with the damage over the course of the next maybe 200 laps or so, and hope for a instance where he can get that fast repair clicked off, he can get a fresh race car, and hopefully give himself a shot to win this race. As right now, though, the field will double up as Dalton Tucker will take over the race lead once more. Your pole sitter has led a good chunk of this race at the moment. Scott Healy will be underneath him with Kyle Benson, Craig Lansauger to your second row, Justin Mons, Joe Sanchez to 6, Edward Scher, Nicholas Rizzuti, Tyler Murray, and Robert Parrott in the 6 machine. The car is off into the pit road. Dalton Tucker, though, with not as good of a restart. Scott Healy going to fend through to the inside as they work to turn 1 and 2.
A power move by Scott Healy. Will he get clear? He's going to get sideways, and he's going to save it. What a save by Scott Healy. He almost got clear for the lead and got too impatient on the throttle. He does recover, and he'll end up about 6th. But Tucker didn't get that great of a launch and nearly lost the lead, but it'll go right back to him. Benson and Lansauger battling away for second.
And they're going at it right now. Benson to the inside. Lansauger trying to pinch as they head off the banking. They're going to allow Dalton Tucker to run away with this lead for the moment, but I think this is the battle we may focus on, because now here comes Joe Sanchez. Scott Healy trying to work his way back, very loose. Goes the 4 of Kyle Benson. He'll lose that position to Lansauger in turn. We have a hornet's nest through the top 5 right now, Francisco.
This is what being side by side does. It just causes a stack up from the rest of the cars, especially if everybody else is side by side in and of itself, because it blocks the racetrack. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there by Scott Healy. He goes up the racetrack and will lose 2 positions there as we have a caution on the racetrack.
And a crash between Tyler Werner and Robert Parrott. We saw Robert Parrott in the top 10 just on this restart. Seems as though he's gotten himself into some trouble, most notably on the back straightaway, and Werner also involved in it as well. We'll try to take a look at the replay, see exactly where this stemmed from. Parrott letting a lot of cars by on the outside, trying to get the run. And he gets a piece of the outside wall, got a piece of the 71 as well. Big hit by the 33, caught the wall in the wrong place. And he just gets put in the wrong situation. You see the 6 go around, you see Werner trying to avoid, and there's no space.
That's unfortunate. He almost had it missed, just barely got hit. And then he almost had missed the wall, but then he hit the slight angle of the opening there. And oh, we see a separate incident here with Gillis.
Yeah, this is Brandon Gillis in the 9. This is way before this incident happened that brought out the yellow flag. Oh, big hit to the inside wall goes Gillis. And he had pulled it behind the wall. As a result of this one, he had already burned his fast repair, so he's 3 laps down. He's over to the back. You see him tow it to the garage and put it right behind the wall as the incident happened to bring out the yellow between Parrott and Tyler Werner. Also to note, unfortunately, Austin Reedy has also brought his car behind the garage. He is for sure out of this race, 9 laps down.
That's big for the playoffs.
That's going to be very big for Austin Reedy. Negatively for every other driver. That's going to give them a good round to pounce on him, give him some extra points, and Reedy may be in a hole coming to next week. We'll just have to see as Reedy pulls the trigger on this race early. As the field will spread behind the iRacing official pace car one more time. We go to lap 70. We'll see if next lap we get 1 to green, but I'm not sure whether we will, as most of everybody has already settled. Most of the pit stops have already happened, so I believe we'll already have the lights out once we go by to the start-finish line next time around. Very good move here. Due to instances of getting loose by both Kyle Benson and Scott Healy, Craig Lonsarger and Joe Sanchez moving to the top 3. So these 3 could have an opportunity to stay up front, potentially fend off Kyle Benson, Scott Healy, and a handful of others. And for Sanchez, he's been running his way up to the front. He's had some good battles, most notably with Justin Mons, and staying in third. I think the bottom of row number 2 could give him some, at least a good vantage point with Lonsarger right in front of him when we get to this restart.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have another lap here at least, but the 55 has slowly worked its way towards the front in this race and is now running inside the top 5, and that looks like where he can end up being for most of the night if he avoids any issues. So we see Lonsarger also into second place. He's been good at these short tracks, as I previously mentioned, so he now has track position. We'll see what he's able to do and see if he can mount a challenge to the 52, who looks to be one of the fastest out there.
All right, well, we'll double them up. It seems as though we're going to stay one more lap behind the iRacing official pace car. And for those, I think many, tuning away from the NASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series that just concluded from a track that has never been with NASCAR in any case, the Chicago Street Course. We had James Davison, the winner, taking 2 wins in a row after winning at Circuit of the Americas the last time they went Pro Invitational racing. And Davison, I think, known as one of the road course gods in the eNASCAR, or at least the NASCAR iRacing segment, with many of the real-life pros trying to go for there. So congratulations to James Davison on the win there from Chicago Street Course, and I guess we'll be having some fun after the broadcast of the Chicago Street Course and having a bit of fun with the NASCAR Cup cars and any other car on the iRacing service. Meanwhile, though, we'll have a restart lap 73 of 267 as Dalton Tucker will lead through the way with Craig Lonsarger to his inside. Pace car will make its way down low. How about we turn things up and crank it up here on MaxSpeedTV? Dalton Tucker completes lap number 79 to lap number 80. He's already pulled a 1.3 second gap as Craig Lautensager tries to hold off Scott Healy for second. Those two side by side. You saw as they were on that crank it up segment, Kyle Benson got way loose off the exit of 4. And a couple of drivers tried to take position away. He was able to fend off and be on the defense, but right now having a bit of trouble with his race car. I don't think he is in any way happy with the way his car is handling, as he's all over the place right now.
Yeah, we saw several guys on that crank it up. We saw the in-cars, they're having a lot of trouble keeping that wheel straight, and that's just showing how difficult it is to run this racetrack. And you talked about the weather, but when this race started, 68 air temperature and 71 the track temperature. That is proving to be problematic, not because it's super high, but because the track has a lot of speed in it, and with the higher speed, it's a lot harder to control with that little spoiler on the back of the car. So it's very difficult for these guys to keep the car pointed straight, just trying to plant the throttle in, and it's not agreeing with them.
It's definitely not. That low downforce really is not helping their case, especially with the way that NASCAR designed it so that all the short tracks, including Darlington, not necessarily a short track, but it is one of those tracks in between a short track and a mile and a half in terms of length. They decide to use the high horsepower and low downforce package. 750 horsepower available underneath the hood from these small block V8s. So these drivers have a lot of power underneath them that they can use with their right foot, but they don't have as much mechanical grip. And also as the tires start to fall off, the grip levels start to dwindle even further. They'll have to really hold on to the race car, be a little more careful, cautious with the throttle, and try to apply the best way they can. That's where Kyle Benson is on the struggle right now. Luckily, he's been using that outside, so most of the runs off the corner has been able to keep him ahead of these guys right here, Joe Sanchez and Edward Schur, although they've been putting that pressure, and now I think Schur may try to go underneath the 55 of Sanchez. Indeed, he will, so a nice move by Schur to put himself underneath into turn 3.
Yeah, he's going to try and take over the position here in the turn 3, but a little bit just not quite there enough. You see, almost get into the 55 there, but the 55 able to keep going. Mons and Eric Schaffer battling back there for the 7th position. So we see a good amount of cars here. You see Nicholas Vizuzzi right here as well. So several cars under a blanket here just outside the top 5.
And these are valuable positions, especially if you're the driver right there in that chrome and blue Ford Mustang. Nicholas Vizuzzi, a 2-time winner this season, a winner at New Hampshire earlier, and of course a win at the Martinsville Speedway, our 285 lap event. A very chaotic one at that, but he's gotten the wins at the short track, so he knows a thing or two about whipping a car around the short track, and enough to know that he could definitely have a shot to win. His cars are usually very fast. He's usually very fast behind the wheel. Right now, he currently rides just inside the top 10, and any point will matter. Remember, we talked about Austin Reedy. He's a playoff driver. He got shuffled out, and with the incidents, or I guess the struggles that he's had tonight, he's put it behind the wall, so his race is over. And for Vizuzzi, that's already some points gained, but at the same time, right here, where all these non-playoff drivers sit, these are all points between himself and the guys in front of him, so make no mistake, although the non-playoff drivers are certainly just here to win, they don't really have anything to lose. For Vizuzzi, him being stuck in 9th is something very much to lose going into next week if he keeps away like this.
And here's another thing. It's been a couple years since NASCAR has raced without stages, but if everybody in the playoffs would be running top 5 to top 10, and I mean every single one of them, it'd be tough to gain points because there wouldn't be more than a 10-point difference if it's 1 point per position in the races, because if you finish 6th and the other driver that you're battling with nearby in points, you see Benson very sideways there. But if the person you're battling with in points finishes 3 spots ahead of you and the rest of the playoffs is in between, then that's maybe 3 points that you lose and or gain. If it's consistently every race, that ends up being 10 over 5 when you can gain 10 in maybe one race depending on the stages that happen and get 3 points, or if it was an incident that involves the other drivers. So when everybody's still running on the racetrack and running good, it can be very difficult to gain, but also very difficult to lose. It just depends on what situation you are in and what you need to do in order to advance. So we see Benson there did lose several spots on the back straightaway. He has fallen down to 7th now under fire from Justin Mons for that 7th position.
Yeah, right now, as he's getting loose, especially off turn 2, I've noticed that he's really swiveling the car around, just trying to keep it straight, and that's where he's losing all that time. So you see him right now under fire from Justin Mons, maybe under fire from Vizzuti in the next couple laps. That's going to be a big pass if Vizzuti can get it done, and if Kyle Benson continues to deal with these issues. I can reckon that Benson right now is just praying that either a caution comes out or a green flag stint starts to happen, because he desperately needs fresh tires. His car is not necessarily handling well at all in the long run. Here comes Vizzuti to the outside, and Vizzuti with a pass to turn 1. That's a big statement there as Kyle Benson continues to fall through the pack right now.
Your regular season champion, the points leader for most of the season, your winner at the Roval, struggling right now. Still a long way to go in this race, but this cannot continue to happen through the rest of the race, because these are points that he could be losing by the time the checkered flag comes out. And here we see Eric Schaffer and Edward Schurner now battling inside the top 5.
Eric Schurr's build up, or Eric Schaffer, as Edward Church is outside. Eric Schaffer has built up a lot of speed over the course of the long runs. I don't think we've really had a long run per se to give him that opportunity, but his big league chew, number 22, has definitely been on the move since the drop of the green flag. He started a couple rows deep. Now with the speed he's gathered so far, he has now put himself at the edge of the top 5 and slowly approaching Joe Sanchez and Craig Lonsarger, who are kind of nose to tail a little bit right now between the top 3. Scott Healy a little bit more up front, and then 2.7 seconds ahead is, of course, your leader, Dalton Tucker. So, at least at this moment, Francisco, we talked about drivers like Vizzuti, that any position lost or any position gained is going to be big going into next week, and of course, for the rest of the playoffs, that you kind of have to set it up. But this is sort of the first time, in a way, that we're seeing either new drivers and non-playoff drivers start to put themselves in the mix, while the playoff drivers just have to kind of maneuver around them. How tough is that to at least handle if you're a driver running for the championship? Because of course you want to go for the win, you want to be up front, but these drivers that have nothing to lose, these drivers that are running for the wins, they also don't want to give it up. They don't want to give these spots up. They want to stay up front, they want to perform well, and they won't give it to you easy as a playoff driver.
And I know what that's like, Kenneth. I've been in a position where I've been one of these non-playoff drivers in a championship race or a playoff race, and it's difficult because you have to run for yourself. You're trying to give performances and finishes for your team, for your sponsors, and for yourself. You want to run good and finish good, but it's also trying to balance that fine line with how much do you race the playoff guys. You know they have a lot more to lose, and you don't want to get into them and ruin their race, because if you're in their position, you would want the same sort of respect back. So it's difficult to be in that position, but you can't blame someone for racing you for a position, especially the closer to the front of the field you get, because say you're battling for the win with a non-playoff driver and a playoff driver, then that's completely understandable, because that's the race win or a second place finish for somebody who's a rookie or just trying to have a career day. You can't not blame them for battling them, but how hard do you battle them? That really comes down to how that driver races and how much do they really want that position over the other driver. And it's difficult to find that balance, but if you're running up front, and depending on the racetrack it is and just the speed you have on short and long run, it sort of works itself out. And I found out that on the fly. I was figuring it out at the Homestead Miami Speedway, and I was able to avoid any issues with any of the playoff drivers. I was able to navigate it well, and it ended up working out for everybody involved.
Right now, seeing a battle between Cody Kinsey developing in the 33 of Tyler Warner. Tyler Warner, again, we've talked about him as a driver who started this season off with a checkered flag in hand. The winner of the season opener, Daytona International Speedway, has yet to capture a win since, but has been probably one of the more consistent drivers out of this field that give him the spot at the top 10 in the playoffs. So for Warner right now, he's trying to make something work, but up the road got very sketchy. Justin Mons, I think, sort of similarly sharing that problem that Kyle Benson has had earlier tonight that's made him drop back in traffic. His car is very, very loose, and his tires do not want to grip the surface.
And one thing I do want to point out, Kenneth, is that this is the first playoff race, but it's also the only one with this package, because if you look at the rest of the playoff schedule, the next race next week is Indianapolis, followed by 3 mile-and-a-halves at Kansas, Kentucky, and then the championship race at Charlotte. So different racetracks for the rest of those playoffs, the only similar ones being Kansas and Kentucky, and even that has its own differences. But other than that, a lot of different challenges these drivers are going to be facing in the playoffs, and this is probably the toughest one, just talking about the package alone.
It is, and that's going to be probably the outlier here, Francisco, for these playoffs. The fact that you're just going to have this only short track, the only track that's at least less than a mile and a half, and this is going to be the first step to championship glory. Of course, you're going to have more races to help you out. Indianapolis, Kansas, and Kentucky are very fair places to go, and if you lose points here tonight, you can gain them all back, and even more so throughout those races. But here, this poses a very different challenge. We've seen these drivers on short tracks throughout the season, but in the playoffs, it's such a different aura. You're in a very different spot, and especially with the drivers that are good at short tracks, the drivers who are not good at short tracks, the drivers who have struggled, maybe some drivers who have had success, maybe some drivers who have been in limbo around this type of package and this type of configuration. It's very, very interesting to see how it plays through to a championship event or to a championship run all the way to Charlotte. And for right now, these drivers are getting a handle of it. Craig Lounstarger, though, has fallen just a little bit on the long run. He's been stabling himself within the top 3. That's where he's been stagnant, but a lot of his speed has been scrubbed off to the long runs, and you can tell many of the times before cautions have come out, he's kind of been under fire from people behind him, and seems to be no different right now. Joe Sanchez, one of the non-playoff competitors, and I believe a driver making his first start here tonight, trying to go for what is P number 3 at the moment.
Yeah, battle for the 3rd spot, and if they get too racy with one another, that'll just invite Eric Schaffer back there in the 5th position. But what you've noticed as we've gone into this long run, Kenneth, is lap traffic is starting to get encountered by those in the top 5. We saw a couple cars there that the leader had already gone by, but we see a huge battle with Mons almost getting into the 33 of Tyler Warner there, and then we see a couple more cars trying to catch up and pounce on this 41. So we've seen 2 drivers now, namely drop back a lot of positions over this run. It's been the 41 of Justin Mons and the 4 of Kyle Benson, as you see him right there just for a little bit further back ahead of Tyler Murray.
Yeah, right now, Mons is really struggling with his race car as he loses 2 positions there, both to Cody Kinsey and Tyler Warner. But you make a great point there, Francisco, and we saw Dalton Tucker get around it not too long ago, and the field getting around Dustin Webb, who's now at least more than a lap down right now on the racetrack and sitting in the 18th spot. Most of the field went around him. Here's Pete Bruni, the last car, or at least the first car, 1 lap down in 17th. We're going to be seeing a lot of the lap traffic play into this race, especially when it starts to get more deep when we stay under green, because now you're going to have the lap traffic start to come through as the leaders start to go by, packs are starting to form, and then at the same time, if you stay green for long enough, you have to also consider pit strategy. That's going to put more drivers a lap down. That's going to cycle the traffic a lot more. That means more drivers either 1 lap down or more, or drivers on the lead lap are going to start to tussle, going to start to clash a little bit, and that could result in maybe possible incidents and maybe possible big passes throughout tonight. If that's all, of course, if we stay green. If yellow comes out, then none of that really matters. The lap traffic at least most of them get their laps back. Lucky dogs are issued and so on and so forth. But that's going to be a very interesting point if we even get to that cycle there in tonight's race. So as we continue to look at this 3-car train, Justin Mons now possibly, maybe, under fire from the driver of the 38, Mark Brannigan Jr., trying to make up some spots.
And I just want to make a quick point that we missed. On lap 77, the 0 of Jesse Price had self-spun. No caution had come out as he was able to keep it going. But I was going back just to look back at a couple laps ago, and I noticed that happened almost 40 laps ago on the restart. So and that's when I noticed we've already gone about 40 laps since the last caution. So these guys are going to start thinking about pit stops sometime in the next 30 laps if this does stay green. But I did want to point that out, as I did notice that when I went back to see that.
Well, I guess add that to the category of spins that did not cause yellow. Scott Healy, one of them, and of course with Jesse Price, I guess the second one that we missed on the restart. And of course no yellow came out as a result. That's why we're on this very long run. I think for most drivers, Francisco, some for pit stop strategies, it's possibly more on the mind for others than it is for many, because guys like Kyle Benson, guys like Justin Mons, they are definitely worried about the tire life on their race cars, how fast they are right now, and how long can they hold on to it, especially with the fact that they've been wicked loose the past couple laps, especially out of turn number 2. So maybe they really want to go down pit road badly to get some of those fresh tires and not have to worry about this type of handling on the race car. Because at this point, Francisco, of course, you're battling other drivers on the track with you, but you're mostly battling this racetrack. If you start to deal with issues like this where your car is getting very loose, the tires are starting to grip away, your car starts to step out a lot more, you have to focus and kind of stranglehold the car racing against the track versus racing against others. And in many cases, in some cases that can help, but in some cases that could also make things worse, because you're trying to fight the car, you're trying to make it do what you want it to do, but then you're losing time trying to save that race car, trying to fight against it, and then that's what leaves everybody else behind who's more comfortable with the race cars in the stint get around you at that point. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Justin Mons, having this pressure from Warner and Brannigan right now, getting passed by Cody Kinsey. There's kind of that struggle that these drivers are starting to deal with right now at the moment in lap number 119.
Yeah, and I know you've heard the term, and everybody's heard the term, race the racetrack, and that's what you have to do at tracks like Richmond. You have to race the racetrack, and if you lose a spot, so be it, but if it helps your car on the long run, then you have to do it, because you just lose so much time if you don't do it. And we're seeing it now with Benson, who's all the way down in 13th now, and we see it with Justin Mons falling outside the top 10. You have to race the racetrack, make sure you get in a rhythm, that you don't hurt the tires, that you keep the temperatures in check. That way you're able to satisfy the car, and it'll agree with whatever inputs you do, especially as the laps continue to tick. And we're seeing the 52 be an example of that. He's been racing the racetrack, and even when he lost the lead on those alternate pit strategies back at the beginning of the race, he never really got too antsy making the moves that to get back to the front of the field. He was being patient. He was racing the racetrack, and that's why he's kept it in one piece, and you've seen him be nice and smooth for most of the evening. But I do want to mention that now that we are in this long run, for our basketball fans who watch on our broadcast, the Philadelphia 76ers have defeated the Washington Wizards by about 17 points to advance to the second round, and the Atlanta Hawks just defeated the New York Knicks in the fourth quarter, 103-89. So two series come to an end just like that.
So can we make this sort of a basketball segment every time we go broadcasting here for a while? Can we do that?
Playoff specials, man.
I mean, we can. Playoff is special. I mean, even when we get to the finals, it's going to be even more special. We probably won't shut up about that and talk more about basketball than when we're talking about the racetrack. I guess, maybe. But, yeah, I was just about to say, I read Stephen A. Smith's tweet right now saying that Atlanta was the better team, and congratulations on them. And he said he was proud of the New York Knicks in their series. So I guess congratulations to Atlanta. Congratulations to Philadelphia. They'll move on to the second round, and they're actually going to play each other. So that's going to be a very interesting series, and hopefully Trae Young and the Hawks can try to rally against what is so far a rather dominant Philadelphia 76er team, and hopefully make that a great series, as well as the Nets and the Bucks. I think the clash of the superstars there is going to be very big. We're seeing the superstars right now on track as we complete lap number 125. Dalton Tugger has spread himself away easily, the most dominant car so far. 6 seconds flat over Scott Healy into second. Craig Lonsarger has slowly reeled him in with Joe Sanchez in tow. So we have a trifecta of cars here for the top three. Edward Schur sitting behind them in the top 5. Eric Schaffer behind him in 6th. Cody Kinsey to 7th. He's in front of Justin Mons, who's trying to fight off Tyler Werner in 9th. And, of course, Mark Brannigan Jr. sporting the Anthony Alfredo, number 38. He lines up the top 10. Many great battles, though, Francisco, we're seeing on the racetrack. So, although we're getting a long run and some separation, it's not like the separation is taken over completely, because a lot of these drivers have kept their skill levels fairly close on their long runs, and many of them providing racing like we're seeing right now. Some fantastic racing at Richmond right now.
Yeah, Richmond always provides some great racing, especially for these other positions. You're just able to see these guys go into different lines and make it work and have a fantastic battle. And speaking of battles, here we have a three-way battle for the second position. Scott Healy now under 5 from Craig Lonsarger, who had fallen off, but looks like in the very long run has saved his tires well enough to challenge that second position. And right behind them, we see Joe Sanchez right behind these two, who could easily take advantage of them battling and maybe get a 2-for-1. If they're not careful enough. So these three right here in the top 5 are having a great battle. Eric Schaffer is on an island of his own, well behind this group, but also enough in front of Edward Scherner in the 6th position. So he's in no man's land, but in the top 5, so I think he'll take it. But if we look on the end of the scale here, Kyle Benson's down in the 13th position right now, and in a couple laps time, he may end up getting passed for that position, and that'll put him on the last car on the lead lap if he gets passed for the 13th position. And that just goes to show the downfall that this 4 cars had over this run. He has only 1 car behind him, and there you see him right there. And if he's not careful, Wyatt will get passed, and that'll put him last car on the lead lap. And if the leader comes around quick enough before pit stops, that will be very dangerous for the race of the 4 car.
We saw one driver pit most recently, and that was Roman Long, and yes, he did burn off the fast spread that he was holding on. So a fresh race car for Roman Long and some fresh tires. You see him kind of bullying his way through the field. That's exactly why he's doing so. The fresh tire power helping out his case. About 70 laps right now on these stints. For most drivers, it's 71 and 70, or 71 for the top 5 altogether, then 63 for Eric Schaffer, who had pitted a little bit later compared to these guys, and then back to 71 with Cody Kinsey, Justin Mons, before you get to 63 and 63 with both Warner and Brannigan, and then back to 71 with Zuti, Tyler Murray, 63 with Shane Wyatt, 62 with Ricky Rosner, and now Kyle Benson finally takes a step down pit road. So you were talking about that, Francisco, at risk of being the last car on the lead lap. He's going to get put 1 lap down, but he's going to kick off this pit road cycle.
There'll actually be 2 down, but yes, he is going to come down pit road, make advantage of those new tires, and try to gain some of that time back. And he had to try something different, Kenneth. If he kept doing what he was doing, he was just going to lose even more time and maybe fall a lap down naturally to your race leader if this run kept progressing. And I think right now, it's a shallow entry by the 52. I thought he was going to come down pit road that time, but he'll stay out. The window here is going to open within 5 laps for those people that you just mentioned in the 70s. There's some people that have gone in the 60s of laps, and they put it in the most recent yellow. They can go longer, and we'll see just how that strategy works with that 10-lap difference that we've seen in some of these drivers from when they pitted, because I don't think everybody pitted on this last caution that we did have, but they did save some fuel. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much does that little bit of a 8 to 10 lap difference make if we stay green, as we just passed the halfway point in the race.
And what this is going to do, Francisco, if this gets put into a green flag pit strategy, is that this is going to make a 2-stop strategy viable. Maybe 1 stop if you're able to save enough fuel, but for the most part, you're going to go 2 stops here. If you go a stop right now, you can maybe go a maximum of 75 to 80 laps, just depending on how long these guys run. If we're looking around that ballpark, we're probably going to go around lap 210, and I just saw it right there. I was about to mention it. Pete Bruni has had a meeting with the pit road barrels. I believe he was trying to get down pit road, trying to be on the brakes. And right there, not enough to slow down, and it goes right for the barrels very slowly. But at that point, it's inevitable. You kind of already see it happening, and you have nothing to do.
Yeah, and what caused that was when he got on the flat with the left side tires there very early into the corner. That probably put a little bit of discomfort in his braking, and then it just had the car in a slide the rest of the way. Fortunately for us and for everybody on the racetrack, that did not trigger a caution flag in the middle of pit cycles or just as pit cycles are about to begin. So maybe that will allow everything to cycle out the way it should over the next couple of laps. That was a very close call, because Kyle Benson right there, who is 2 laps down, almost got trapped 2 laps down because of it.
He almost got really trapped at that point, as you see Dalton Tucker round out lap 78. Now going to come across the line to lap 79 on his run. There's Kyle Benson going to try and unlap himself. Give himself a shot to get back on the lead lap and fight with the guys up front. Using the fresh tire power, he's going to go straight to the inside. Bye-bye, he goes. Dalton Tucker, though, going to try and wait. But as I was saying, if you're going to go around this stint, let's say around lap 80 to 85, I believe right now we're getting into that range. You're going to have to pit at around, I'd say, probably lap 2, or actually, I'd say
1 stop from here after you pit here.
At least it would be a 1 stop, because then you'd go to lap 220, 230, I'd say, and then you can pit to lap 267. So I guess for now, but some drivers may be split, some drivers may not be. We do have some takers down pit road. That includes the 22 of Eric Schaffer and the 93 of Cody Kinsey. So again, we have more drivers edging themselves to a pit road strategy under the green flag. We saw Kyle Benson kind of kick things off, but I think here, as these guys are on the lead lap, these guys are fighting for positions near the top 10. This is really going to start to kick off the cycle that we're inevitably going to see.
A little bit of a slow stop there once the left side's got dropped there for the 22. He'll get going, though, so no problem there. We see a couple more cars here come in. We see the 33 of Tyler Warner. Tyler Murray's in as well. So the pit stop cycle is well and truly underway with 126 laps to go.
And this is going to be big here if you can nail this pit stop. Possibly saw that pass between Kinsey and Eric Schaffer, though Eric gets the best of it, so he's going to go in front. Many drivers going to go down pit road. There goes your race leader, Dalton Tucker, in the 52, going to make a trip down pit road. Second place, Craig Lonsarger, and third place, Joe Sanchez, will follow suit. There's the 75 of Vizzuti. I think I see Shane Wyatt down pit road as well. You see Tyler Warner getting that service. Here comes Scott Healy. So now this is the big move down pit road. The only one yet to pit is the driver you're looking at right now, the 20 of Edward Schur, who's still waiting for everybody else, as I think practically most drivers on the lead lap have gone down to pit. There's Mark Brannigan in 38 taking his service.
Yeah, Justin Monza's yet to come down pit road. Brannigan just came in. And right now, Tucker is in the 4th spot as the caution comes out.
And a yellow flag comes out in the dead middle of the pit road strategy. Who does it involve? I don't see any drivers particularly in trouble. But we have a yellow flag brought out. And it may have been Eric Schaffer. We'll try to take a look at the replay. As Schaffer comes out of turn 4. And right there, spins on the racetrack, hits the inside wall. And that becomes a yellow flag as he moves back onto the track.
Unreal, Kenneth. And we were just talking about it not too long ago, how we had a close call. Right there, it did happen. And look at the left side of that scoring ticker. Every single person is a lap down. Eric Schurner, Edward Schurner, is the only car on the lead lap. He'll come down pit road. The 52 will be the free pass position, running in second. So he'll get a lap back regardless. And whoever's a lap down will be eligible to get the wave around to end up back on the lead lap once he comes down pit road. You see him on pit road right there. So everyone could take the wave around. But whoever's one lap down right now are the ones who will end up back on the lead lap. And I believe that's going to be the top 13. So Kyle Benson did get actually a pretty good break. He'll restart a little bit further back than he may want to because of the amount of wave rounds, them being at the tail end of the longest line and single file. But it does put him in the 4th position.
So at least that's going to help his case, right? Because now we'll see if he ends up pitting. He's 14 laps in his stint. So he could very well go down pit road again if he wants to. We'll just have to see. There goes Dalton Tucker. I believe he's slowly making a signal to go down. Indeed he will. So the fresh tires he'll try to go for. And I think I believe he may have pitted under close. So he may have a penalty for this.
No, Tucker actually is the free pass position. So he can come down pit road now as he did get the lap back. So this is him coming in for a stop now. He's the only other person that can pit if they want to stay on the lead lap, because anybody else is going to have to take the wave round in order to get back on the lead lap, and they can't pit. We see Benson actually on pit road, so he will not get the wave around.
And he will not, so I guess he's going to go for the fresh tires. I was going to ask if he was going to make this stop. 14 laps
Schaffer
in his
too.
stint. Eric Schaffer also goes down pit road, the cause of the incident for yellow. He's going to get a faster pair. He burns it off, and he gets fresh tires along the way, so they both will put themselves in a rather peculiar, I guess I would say, position here for these guys. That is not what you want to see, though, Francisco. That's probably the worst time a yellow could come out. In the dead middle of pit road strategy, guys are pitting, guys are coming out, guys are still cycling through traffic, and then a yellow just changes everything because that puts most people a lap down. That can put a lot of drivers in trouble, and it really can take drivers out of contention, especially since we only have less than 120 laps to go.
And not to mention the fact that people had short pitted by almost 20 laps, so it probably had a little bit of a differential as far as where you were running before versus where you are now. We saw Benson, had he not pitted, he would have lined up in 4th, for example. But right now we see Lawton Songer followed by Sanchez. Kinsey is going to end up in the top 5. Rowan Long also in the top 10. Scott Healy down to 8th. Brannigan in the top 10. So you're seeing just what it has done to the running order. And Kyle Benson right now on the scoring pylon, we have him as the first car, 1 lap down in the 10th position. So he's going to hope for a quick caution here and that he stays in that first car 1 lap down. There are 4 cars, a total of 1 lap down, so they're all going to be battling for the free pass position.
That's going to be very big there, especially for playoff drivers. That does include Benson, does include Vizzuti. So this will be big for them as well to try and get something. That includes Tyler Warner as well, who's 2 laps down. And Christopher Bishop, who's 5 laps down at 19th. We haven't talked about him much all night. He's got a lot of damage from the incidents he's been involved in. But again, he's a playoff driver in the top 10. So you also have to consider him into the equation as drivers that will be heavily affected by all of this right now. And for many, this is going to be a cycle, right? For Scott Healy, for a handful of others, this is going to be a cycle back to the front. Net P1, net P2, net P3, net whatever net position they were planning to be in, that's what they were expecting to be. But the yellow flag just halts the whole process, and then wherever you were is pretty much where you're going to be unless you go down pit road and positions change. So this is going to be rather big. At lap 151, we've racked the field, so Edward Scherer will lead us to the green flag. Craig Lansauger technically is running second, with Joe Sanchez to third, Cody Kinsey to fourth, Tyler Murray to the top 5. And we're just going to wait for the Iron's official pace car to set itself down pit road. This is going to be an odd start here, as most lap cars are going to be behind the 20 of Edward Scherer, but we're back under green at lap number 152.
And the cause for that is because of the amount of people that had to take the waiver on in order to get back on the lead lap, and that puts them tail end of the field. So all the lap cars are in front of the lead lap cars, except for your race leader, who has clean sailing ahead. So this couldn't have worked out for a better person, as we saw almost contact between Eric Schaffer and Edward Scherer. A very close call for your race leader. He is able to keep it going. Kyle Benson in that 10th position, the first car 1 lap down. He's going to try and see if a caution can come out so he can get back on the lead lap, or if he can just get up there and pass Scherer on his own to get back on the lead lap the old-fashioned way.
That was very sketchy between Eric Schaffer and Edward Scherer, because he got right into the back bumper of the 20. Almost could have easily sent him around, as he right on board with Kyle Benson, who's trying to chase both of these guys down. Remember, these both are 1 lap down or more, so they have to get around this race leader if they want to lap themselves, and hopefully can get a yellow so they can stay ahead and catch up to more traffic, gain some more positions. For Benson and Schaffer, that is the case, but they've yet to find any success. Here's the battle, though, for second. Joe Sanchez trying to put a move on Craig Lansauger. There's Cody Kinsey. Around the lap, Christopher Bishop and Tyler Murray, who with this strategy, I think it helped him out the most, because he puts himself in the top 5 with all of this.
The person that definitely helped the most was Edward Scherer. I mean, he was gifted a 2.5-second lead off of that pit strategy, and he was running in P5, but just look at what it's done. It's put some of his primary contenders a little bit further back. Tucker down in the 9th position. I'm not exactly sure what happened to him on that restart. I believe he restarted 3rd in position-wise, but a little bit further back because of lap traffic. I'm not sure if he had an issue on the start itself that set him back, but he is last car on the lead lap in the 9th position. Craig Lansauger is the driver in 2nd, followed by Sanchez and Kinsley, and now Scott Healy has worked his way into the top 5, passing the 8 of Tyler Murray.
Well, this is going to help things even more as Edward Scherer comes across lap 10 on his stint. I think reverberating back to the point where we talked about the one-stop strategy that'll happen, because if they go around 80 laps, they're going to head around lap 225 to 230, maybe around that range, maybe even a little more if they can extend it. And then, of course, one more stop to close this one out. So there is still drama down pit road we can still cover. But at this moment, Edward Scherer with a 2.881 second advantage over Craig Lansauger. But the field will be racked up once more. Caution flag waves. We'll try to see who may this have involved. And it may have involved the 80 of Matthew Jorgensen. We saw him in a caution earlier tonight. He's very slow on the front straightaway, and I believe a cause for caution this time around.
And that's exactly what Kyle Benson wanted to see. He ends up being the first car 1 lap down. The free pass will be for him, and he'll end up not only just stay inside the top 10, but he'll be on the lead lap. So this could have worked out any better for anybody else right now. But if you're Edward Scherer, you did not want to see this caution. You had a gifted 2.5-second lead and had a bunch of lap traffic between yourself and the rest of the cars. If there was any time to have a long run, if you're the driver of that 20, it would have been now.
And there you see driver of the 20, Edward Scherer, going to go down pit road. Lansauger, Sanchez, Kinsey, Healy, Murray, a lot of other drivers on the lead lap going to take this opportunity to get forced fresh tires and possibly extend the run fuel-wise. This is going to give that opportunity too, Francisco, for drivers to save. We've seen it under caution, and we've seen it time and time again, not only in this league but everywhere else on oval racing, that you can sort of put in the clutch under yellow while you're under this short pacing. You don't have to be a full throttle. You don't have to really be 110%. So you can be sort of putting around very slowly behind the pace car. You can be right on the clutch, and you're able to save some extra laps and some extra liters in your fuel tank, which will ultimately mean the difference for Edward Scherer. He's going to come out first on pit road. Lansauger and Sanchez to follow. But that will put Kyle Benson for the race lead, and now he'll go down pit road, so he'll rescind that position at the moment. Edward Schur will take it over, but that is going to help pretty much everybody who was stuck behind all the lap traffic on the restart. For Edward Schur, he's not going to have that advantage anymore when we go back green.
Yeah, that was definitely the perfect time if you were Edward Schur to have a long green flag run, just given the fact that you had been gifted the lead and you had been good on the long run. So it would have definitely worked out in his favor had it stayed green, but unfortunately for him it didn't. And now everybody's going to get racked up again. One thing that he should be a little bit content with is that the fastest car that we've seen here tonight, Tucker, is down in the 8th position. So he has a little bit of ways to go if he wants to get up to the 20. But that's not to say that the 13, the 55, and the 64 haven't had speed, because they definitely do. And if they're able to get a good enough start here and make quick work of the rest of these guys in the early laps of the restart, then we'll definitely have a good battle for the lead here shortly.
The driver's going to come across the line. We're going to go around at least once more as the pace car leads the field at lap number 162. We'll take a short break and we'll come right back, but you won't miss a thing here for the 2021 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs from the Richmond Raceway right here on MaxSpeedTV.
We've been waiting for this moment. Generations of innovation all coming together in one place. A pedigree of more than 70 years of NASCAR Cup Series history, from the past to the present, from Petty to Earnhardt to Elliott. Today, there's no more waiting. The future of NASCAR is now. Drive the next-gen cars today on iRacing and step into the next generation of racing.
Back live from the Richmond Raceway, the first playoff race of the 2021 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. Edward Schur had the lead on a yellow flag under pit road cycles until another yellow came out. And now he will have the field in tow with him when we go back to the green flag. Schur and Launsberger, your first row as the pace car comes down. The gears get shifted through. We're back under green from Richmond as Schur tries to fight off Launsberger in turn 1.
Interesting choice by the 20 to choose the inside. We see him push the 13 up the racetrack in turns 1 and 2, and Launsberger will take the lead. Interesting choice there by the 20 to choose the inside.
And under break, we were talking about how Edward Schur would handle under this restart, knowing that everybody behind him, it was going to be lead lap cars fighting for position. It seemed as though he already lost that first spot. Meanwhile, battle behind them is already underway. Scott Healy trying to ride that yellow line underneath Cody Kinsey and Joe Sanchez. It's in between. This is the battle for third.
And you look back there, you see Tucker, who's making his debut here tonight. He struggled a little bit in traffic. He's trying to get by that Michael Guest scheme with the Anthony Alfredo numbers there, trying to find his way back towards the front of the field. Right now in 6th, and now trying to work his way to the rear bumper of Cody Kinsey to get by him and to put himself in the top 5. So these guys are starting to find their way back to the fronts very slowly as we're nearing 100 laps to go.
And Dalton Tucker, we saw him dominating this race at a moment about 5 to 6 seconds above the rest of this field. And now he has to fight his way through traffic as he ride on board for the driver of that William Byron, number 52. Here's a look underneath Cody Kinsey for the top 5. We'll see how Tucker does in the midst of traffic. It doesn't seem to be helping him too much and may end up hurting him in the long run here, Francisco, because if you're trying to get around all these drivers, you're going to be wasting your tires. And for Dalton Tucker, I figure he does not want to be wasting his stuff and his equipment right now getting through traffic. He wants to be up front with clean air leading the race. And right now with Cody Kinsey in tow, that may not be the best possible option.
You're right about that, but also we've seen the pace he's just had all night, so maybe it's natural pace that he'll be able to have, and a little bit of tire wear may not hurt too much. But we know that the clean air plays a large part in how the tires are able to wear. And Greg Lautensager, who's performed well at these low downforce racetracks, finds himself in the lead, and he's pulling away from the driver of that 20. We see Joe Sanchez trying to put some pressure on the 20 as he himself is trying to deal with the 64 Scott Healy.
Right now, everybody's single file. Edward Scher at least keeping away from Sanchez and Healy as Tucker went by Kinsey. Going to try to tackle Healy this time by. Lautensager, though, has pulled up at about half a second to Edward Scher. So make no mistake, that turn 13 does have some speed. We've seen it scrub off on the long runs here, Francisco, but you can't definitely doubt that the 13 has been relatively fast. He got a win earlier this season at a track sort of similarly shaped and about the same length, just a little bit, I think a little bit longer than Richmond, the .875 mile course at the Iowa Speedway. That's where he captured his first win of the season. We've seen him be strong at many other short tracks. We saw him had a performance of his life at Martinsville. He had a good chance to take the race win there. He also had a good chance at New Hampshire, fighting with Nicholas Vizuzzi and a handful of others. So Lautensager has had this speed. I think right now, capturing up front with clean air, he definitely likes to see it.
And as we were talking about him, look at the 20. He's been able to close the gap there, probably changed his line a little bit and started running a little bit different. So he has closed the gap in, and now the top 5 is starting to accordion up together. They're all within a second of one another.
And now here comes Dalton Tucker. He found his way underneath Scott Healy for the 4th spot. They're still going to do battle here as they've spread themselves and put themselves underneath a blanket, perhaps, for the rest of this field. You see Cody Kinsey to 6, and then Mark Brannigan, Tyler Murray. No battles here around the latter half of the top 10. They're still duking it out for the 4th spot as Tucker tried to dive it in underneath. Healy, though, making that push, and finally Tucker with the nose out front. He'll dive into turn 3 with the 4th spot.
Right there, that'll be the position for him. It's a little bit of a bump there by the 64 Scott Healy in the middle of the corner. Nothing strange there. Good old short track racing, but they're able to keep pointed in the right direction. So we are getting to that point in the race where you're going to start using your car a little bit for these positions, because track position will still matter, and you never know what if this race does end up going green.
And right now, we just have to find out. We saw that first green flag run pan out probably perfectly for most drivers on the green flag strategy until that yellow came out. So now, with 17 laps under the books here on this stint, we could definitely see it happen again. Remember, they're about 75 to 80 laps on a stint, so we may cut it very close to the end of this race, especially with the way the laps kind of tick down quickly at Richmond Raceway. These drivers are running. In qualifying, they ran a handful of laps in the 21-second range, 21.5-second range. Now they're running about 22 seconds as the tires continue to fall off. So it's fairly quick to get around here at Richmond. Same with a lot of the other short tracks. So when we'll see laps tick down, we'll see them tick down quick. And for the final stretch of the race, if you need to make a pit stop, I figure many drivers will try to short pit, make themselves stay out a little longer. And Scott Healy drifted out the rear end and almost had a Tokyo Drift moment going back to turn 1.
Oh, he did have a Tokyo Drift moment. We saw the backhand step out a pretty good amount there, and that's not helping the right rear. We see that happen to the 55 of Joe Sanchez right in front of him, and that is a position for the 52 of Tucker if he's able to clear him off the corner, and he will. So move Tucker now up to the 3rd spot. Healy with another moment off turn 4.
Well, he is struggling with his race car and the handling, especially off of that corner. We've seen drivers struggle out at turn 2, and it seems as though it's the opposite sort of situation for the driver of the 64. He's trying to get to Joe Sanchez, going to dive his nose in. 55 has no option but to run that second groove, and Scott Healy again going to try to pounce and maybe hang with Dalton Tucker if he can try to follow him through the field, because that's where Tucker has been at his best. He's trying to carve through traffic the best way he can. And for the 20 of Scher, he may have to look in his rearview mirror and have a little bit more, and maybe look at the focus as you run on board with him.
And you're able to see the arms of him right there, just trying to work that wheel And now with the pressure of the 52 all over him, we'll have to see just what he's able to do. The 52 going to try to look to the outside, maybe a little bit of a crossover attempt here. You see him back up the corner, the middle of the corner. He's going to have a run into turn number 3. Does he go for it? Not exactly, but he is going to continue mounting this pressure on the 20 before the 20 will have to give way.
And that could have forced the 20 of Sure into a small mistake. Maybe kick out the rear end, maybe drive a little bit harder and mess up the corner. Nonetheless, 52 would dive his nose underneath. And Tucker looking for the second spot. Still going to be side by side as Sure gets the run off the banking. And back into turn 3, we'll see who gets the advantage. Tucker going to have it for the moment. Going to put his nose in. And now Dalton Tucker seemingly moving his way through the field. And now with a straightforward shot in the crosshairs with a 13 to Craig Lonsberger. And here's some lap traffic to come into the mix as well.
I was just about to say that, Kenneth. We're seeing the lap traffic. And actually, we see a spin on the back straightaway. You saw the smoke there. No caution yet. I believe that person may have alt-F forward and left the session. But a close call there. You see the 73 of Dustin Webb right there. The 13 really had to exit low off the racetrack. That's not going to help him gain time on the 52. We see the 52 of Tucker now closing the gap significantly there with that lap traffic. So it's already playing a factor.
And I think one of the drivers in that incident might have been Roman Long. I believe he may have been an incident lap 165, but you saw smoke there. I think he may have had that issue also again because he has put it behind the wall. His day is effectively done, unfortunately, here from the Richmond Raceway. But here comes Dalton Tucker, finally going to carve his way through the field, and now able to carve in that gap at about less than half a second between himself and Craig Lonsberger. The last time around, Lonsberger ran at 22.447. Now as he crosses the line at 22.3, while Tucker runs a 22.275. So at this moment, Tucker with the advantage. Not for long, though. Caution waves once more. I saw one driver right there tow it to pit road. There was Matthew Jorgensen. Saw one driver may have towed it. Or saw some smoke there on the back straightaway, but seems to be the cause of the yellow here once more as the field bunches up.
I'm trying to get a look to see just what happened there as the lead lap cars are coming down pit road now to have their services, and I'm not exactly sure what may have brought up this yellow. Kenneth, we see the smoke right up there, and just as it was clearing up, we see the driver who was involved left, and it was Eric Schaffer.
Now Eric Schaffer went from a night that looked promising with speed up front, and it has gone downhill. Loses the front clip with contact in the inside wall, and that was the cause of the smoke there. Just goes around. We'll try to ride on board with the driver, the 22. Just trying to put the gas in through the banking. Right there, car steps out. Again, the trouble spot we mentioned at the top of the show, Francisco. And again, has another incident. This is the second time we see Schaffer in it. And we have a tight battle off pit road. We'll try to get that for you as just looking back at that incident. Tyler Warner comes out first. Although, I believe he's going to pit once more. But Craig Lonsberger actually gets the lead out of all this and fairly close with Edward Sure. Dalton Tucker, though, going to fall back to third.
Yeah, they came across that pit road scoring line 3 wide, basically. They were the 52 had a pretty straight exit, having the number 1 pit box. The 13 edged out just a little bit, and Scherner was just inside of both of them. And you see right here, just barely clipping out the 52 was Scherner. So a position gain there, which could be crucial on this restart. I think it's actually the second white line that we see just off the first pit box. Not the one with it, but rather the second one after. You definitely will start using your car a little bit more, that's for sure. And you probably won't be worrying about fuel too much as far as having to fill it up, but you will use how much you put into the tank as a strategy of adjusting the handling. Because this is fixed setups and you can't really adjust how the car handles, the only way you can really adjust the handling is with brake bias and with the amount of fuel you have in your car. With the way iRacing functions, if you have more fuel in the car, that makes the car a little bit freer. So if we see guys who are very loose out on the racetrack, like we've seen Scott Healy and Kyle Benson and others, then look out for them to maybe not have as much fuel in the car to try and help out that balance on the race car. But nonetheless, the pace car will make this hard left turn. The green flag is going to get ready to wave. You see the 20 actually edge ahead, but the advantage goes to Craig Longstrong. He was the leader, and he's going to get a fantastic jump here and try and bring Scott Healy with him.
Lautensager with the jump to turn 1. Scott Healy and Edward Scher going to try to tag along with, as Dalton Tucker will have 2 more cars to get through. And everybody spans through turn 3, mostly going too wide. And now Scott Healy with a fantastic start. He puts himself to second, and right where the race leader is, here comes Dalton Tucker as well.
Trying to use that outside in order to gain position. Is going to try to go around the outside of Healy. That won't work, but look who's back there. That is, oh, we see the 20 a little bit sideways off the corner. It's going to lose a spot to the driver I was just about to mention, and that's Joe Sanchez right there, who's worked his way now up to 4th. And now Cody Kinsley, who's used the fast repair, is starting to put some fire on that 20, but he himself under pressure by Kyle Benson, who's done a remarkable job trying to recover from his incident early.
It's been the comeback story for the 4 of Kyle Benson through the midway portion of this race. Couple drivers kind of fanning out behind them through the midst of the top 10. Saw Tyler Murray kind of watch out of the way, and Nicholas Vizzuti having a bit of connection issues here through the middle of the field. Some getting very loose. You see many, including Benson, having to wheel their race cars back straight. But at this moment, Craig Lautensager continues to lead, but not by much. You can see from the rear camera of his Toyota Camry, everybody pouncing through. There's Healy. There's the 52 of Tucker, and there's the 55 of Joe Sanchez, and they cross the line for lap 196.
We saw Benson get so sideways the lap before, and you actually could see the tire marks being laid down on the racetrack from how sideways he was on the racetrack. So a lot of these guys are fighting handling issues, and as this race goes on, the cars are getting faster as the temperatures probably haven't changed too much, but with track rubbering in as well, it does impact the handling of the race car. You see right there, we actually have lost about 1 degree in both temperatures from the start of the race. So when you couple that with the track rubbering in, it is making a huge difference. And we see a little bit of a blocking action by the 64.
And 64 of Healy does not want to give this position up. He already had a moment with Tucker that Tucker just took it away easily into one corner. And now Healy fighting very aggressively to fend off the other Chevrolet Camaro down low. Tucker to the inside. Tucker trying to make a move for second.
The advantage will be to the 64 Scott Healy as long as he doesn't get loose, and he will hold that position. And right now he's in defense mode. I know he's catching up to the 13, but I think he's thinking more of holding the 52 back than he is trying to pass the 13, just given where they stand right now as we're almost on the lap 200 mark.
And just given how fast the 52 of Tucker has been, if you're Scott Healy, you want to hold him up as much as possible because you don't want to see him just easily get by you and easily get by the race leader and then let him walk away with the race win, especially if you're Healy or Lautensager. You want this win because you both are playoff drivers. Tucker is not fighting for a championship. Tucker doesn't need all these points. Tucker is not going to try and go to Charlotte with a chance at a title for the Ford Water Racing Cup Series. So if you're the 13 and the 64, you want to hold on to these positions as much as possible if that's going to guarantee you all the points going into next week at Indianapolis.
Yeah, and given the fact that this is now winning in for the within the playoffs, win does not guarantee you a spot in that championship race, but it does give you the most amount of points you can gain by result in order to try and help your chances at making it. So although it's not guaranteed, max points or near max points is definitely good in order to try and give yourself a good chance at making the championship. But right now we've seen the 64, the 13, and a couple of other drivers who've been running up front for most of this race that are in the playoffs that are taking a huge advantage of this. And you see Kyle Benson there trying to run down Kinsley to try and get into that 6th position, or rather just inside the top 5 is Kinsley. So that will be a battle in just a handful of laps, Kenneth. But right now, as we are under about 67 laps to go in this race, we'll try and give the people the sounds and the sights of Richmond Raceway as the battle for the lead heats up. We'll do one more crank it up here for the fans here tonight.
Justin Mons with a moment on the racetrack. No yellow at lap 207, but we stay green. You're hearing all the sights and sounds and pretty much everything here at the Richmond Raceway with about 60 laps to go. Justin Mons had a moment off turn 4, went to the inside wall. Curious to see if it was a yellow, but in-turn race control does not see it fit. Here's a look at the replay as the 41 has trouble.
It looks like he tried to put the power down, trying to get by that 0, but it just got away from him right here, and that's a tough spot. You see right there, just over-eager, trying to see if he can get the drive off the corner, and a little bit of a tag to the wall, but kept it pointed straight, and I believe that's why the caution did not come out, on top of the fact that he was in that grass. So, and now he's on pit road, so that's unfortunate right there for the 41, whose night is probably done when you talking about a good finish here tonight. It looks like he's going to finish several laps down and outside the top 15. That is not going to help his playoff chances. I believe he is in the playoffs.
That's tough for Justin Mons nonetheless, because he was having such a good race in the top 10 prior to this incident. They have not let at it, though, between second right now, as Dalton Tucker, after many laps behind Scott Healy, has finally dug his nose underneath side by side for second. Craig Lonsberger continue holding the lead, but as of lap 211, Tucker to the inside for second, almost about it to turn 2.
Healy's been very defensive over this spot, and you see they're starting to give each other less room, and that's going to cause a lot harder racing. They're going to use their tires up a little bit more, but this defense by the 64 has been just what he's had to do, and the person who's loving this the most is the 13 of Craig Lonsberger. He wants us to keep up for several laps. He wants to try and build the gap, but unfortunately that won't last too long, as the 52 will get clear of the 64, but Healy will try the crossover. A little bit of a blocking there into turn 3 into contact, and around goes Tucker.
Around goes Tucker right behind the field. Caution waves, and the most dominant driver all night long gets put into peril in turn 3 and 4 as Healy tried to make the move underneath, and a caution comes out with less or about 50 laps to go from the Richmond Raceway. Take a look at the replay, and you saw right there for the vantage point of the 55, but between Healy and Tucker there was at least no mercy. Watch the 64 get the run off turn 2, gonna duck his own underneath. Tucker tries to block, and then Healy dives it in, gets into the 52, and around he goes.
Unfortunate that Joe Sanchez was involved in that too. The two Hendrick-looking schemes will be involved in this one, and you know that's going to get talked about after this race. This incident right here, we saw earlier in the race when the 64 was in front of this 52. We saw a similar block made by him, and the 52 sort of let off a little bit and let him get recovered, and the fast repair will be used by the 52. But we saw the 64 do that same block. The 52 gave him a break, and as soon as he got by him, the same block was made, and it doesn't appear that the 64 gave him that same break for position. And who knows what may happen after this race, because he was not happy about that. And we still have 50 some odd laps to go. So if the 52 gets back to that 64, Kenneth, you have to wonder, short track racing and the patience you have here, and drivers remember things well past when they happen. So it's going to be interesting here in these closing laps if the 52 makes a solid recovery here.
Well, they say race car drivers have the memory of elephants. So if drivers can remember something that happened 4 to 5 weeks ago, maybe months ago, they can definitely remember what happened about 5 seconds ago with this incident. Good news, though, for Dalton Tucker. He did not burn his fast repair until now, because he hadn't picked up any damage throughout the entirety of this race up until this point. So he burned out the fast repair, got 4 fresh tires, got the fuel to make it to the end, and in turn, he didn't lose many positions from the crash, because when the yellow came out, he got frozen at about P4, P5, and that's where he sits right now. He sits P5 coming out of pit road. He's going to have cars to get around. That does include Schur, Sanchez, Healy, and of course your race leader, Craig Lonsberger. But at least this isn't the biggest blow for Dalton Tucker, so he's not going to get put to the rear of the field, and he's going to have at least a shot of coming back in this race. And with about 50 laps to go, give or take when we go green, Tucker will have at least some leeway to carve his way back through. The only thing is that you mentioned patience there, Francisco. That's big at tracks like Richmond, but when the races start to close in, positions matter more than everything. You're definitely going to see it run out, and I think even more so for Dalton Tucker. He's dominated this race so far. He does not want to see this win go in the hands of anybody else. So now he's stuck in 5th. He has to make moves quickly if he wants to make this win happen at the end of the night.
Yeah, playoff drivers do not want to give up these wins easily because they know this is what they need to capitalize on. And with the night that has been going on, with the troubles that certain playoff drivers have had to the higher side of that playoff grid, you definitely want to try and capitalize tonight if you want to have a solid points gap as you go to Indianapolis next week. Because Indianapolis, it's not a difficult racetrack with the current package that you're mostly full throttle there, but it's still a wild card just because of the way you have to run the racetrack, the pit strategy that can be involved. You can pit and not lose a lap there. The draft with the way the package works, it's interesting in of itself with the way the track itself is. We just recently saw the Indy 500 there, so fuel mileage could be a factor there, especially. Yeah, there's a number of factors that go into Indianapolis next week, Kenneth, and that's why you have to guarantee now, so you don't have to worry about doing too much next week.
Well, we'll talk about that race when this one concludes. We have a very close race to lap 267. Good restart by the driver of the 13. Lounsauger up and away. We're back under green. Healy clears for second. Sure, side by side with Joe Sanchez for third. As here comes Dalton Tucker underneath. But Lounsauger so far with the race lead. Healy loose off turn 2.
Healy very loose off turn 2, and that's going to put the 55 of Joe Sanchez right on his bumper. We see them all stacking up now for second, and I think the 64 right now wants these cars between him and the 52, as we actually have a wreck in the back. Caution out once again.
Caution flag waves. Big one here at Richmond. Multiple drivers involved. There's Dustin Webb. There's the 33 of Tyler Warner. I saw a couple more cars collected. That's Jesse Prize with front end damage. Tyler Murray may have had a piece of this. Mark Brannigan, Shane Wyatt. Maybe Christopher Bishop, although he has a clean car. I think he got by. But a caution involving multiple drivers. I saw one going around as we were looking at the rear end camera of one of the drivers up front. Take a look at how this started. And it was right there. Tyler Murray and Mark Brannigan go hard into the outside wall coming out of turn 4. You'll see here with the aerial shot, Murray gets loose. Actually, both of them got loose. Brannigan went up sliding to the outside wall. Murray gets into it. You see Jesse Prize in the 0. Nowhere for him to go as he kind of has to push his way through. The 73 of Dustin Webb also gets a piece of this. I think that's why he got very angry at the 33 of... Actually, no, he just went sailing into the 33 just trying to avoid this.
Yeah, they just ended up on the same piece of racetrack right there. And we'll trying to get a high above view here of this wreck in a little bit of a slow motion to kind of walk through what happened, because it looks rather simple here. The 38 and the 8 right here are battling for the position. This is just outside the top 10. We're going to see both of these cars get loose right here off turn 4. The 8 gets sideways first, and then the 38 gets sideways, and that sort of brings the right rear out for the left front of the 8 to sort of tag him. And had that not happened, maybe they wouldn't have hit.
Big hit by Vizzuti there as he was trying to get around all of this. Remember, Vizzuti was a playoff driver. Tyler Warner is also a playoff driver too, along with Tyler Murray. So these are 3 drivers running for the championship involved in this incident. You see Vizzuti not with much damage. He had already burned up his fast repair. And the biggest crash of the evening comes here tonight at the Richmond Raceway as Craig Lounsauger continues to lead this race in hopes of his 2nd win of the season. And one that could surely help him in the playoff situation in the point standings. But he still has around 45 laps to get it done. Maybe less than about 45 laps when we go back green. But very big complications there. Tyler Murray has already gone down pit road. You see him there exiting with damage. You see Tyler Warner. I think Tyler Warner actually put it behind the wall, so his race is effectively over. He's 2 laps down. So another playoff driver taken out of this one. Francisco, I don't think this race has been, should I say, easy on anybody tonight.
No, and we've seen the attrition show itself on most of the field here tonight. We've seen a lot of self-spins, not too many caution flags, but we've just seen a lot of incidents of drivers getting into the wall, getting loose, especially off these corners. And it shows when you see how many people are left on the lead lap. Right now, there are 13 cars on the lead lap, and there are 17 people still, I think, or 16 people still on the racetrack, and we had started with 25 initially. So attrition is showing itself at this point in the race, and we still have a good ways to go. So who knows what's bound to happen in the closing laps of this race. And we just saw a pretty big pile up there on the front straightaway if people start running out of fast repairs, that may end up being terminal damage.
Well, we'll see what happens, and we're anticipating that the pace car will get the lights out, maybe this time by, go for 1 to green. Craig Lautensager will be in the race lead when we go back on a restart. Indeed, lights are out, so we get a restart lap 224 with only about 53 laps remaining, 52 when we cross the line. Craig Lautensager, your leader. Scott Healy will be second. Joe Sanchez to top 3. Edward Scher will be fourth. Dalton Tucker will line up the top 5, followed by Cody Kinsey, Kyle Benson, Nicholas Vizzuti, Mark Brannigan, and the 22 of Eric Schaffer. You mentioned that, Francisco, the attrition taking part in this race, and already most of the top 10 and beyond either have sufficient damage or are out of this race. There are only right now about 13 cars on the lead lap. Dustin Webb 2 laps down in P14. Restart going to come a lap 225. Early start by Craig Lautensager, and he will clear himself back to turn 1 as we're back on the green from the Richmond Raceway.
Joe Sanchez looking to the inside of the 20 of Edward Scherner to try and take over that 3rd spot. We see behind them the 52 of Dalton Tucker trying to come back. Now he gets to the outside of the 55. These 2 Hendrick number fonts are going to battle for the 4th position. Edward Scherner holding on to 3rd and move the 52 now up to 4th.
And Dalton Tucker's done a whale of a job using that outside groove. You're going to see him use it again. Try to use it on Edward Scher this time around. The space is not going to be there, but Scher gets way loose out of turn 2. Meanwhile, Scott Healy has put that pressure on the 13 of Craig Lautensager, and Healy, we've seen him have no remorse before. He may not have no remorse at this point, so he tries to get around fellow playoff contender. But a caution waves.
Just as we were talking about the battle for the lead, a yellow flag comes out, and looks like once again a couple of these drivers back here involved. Shane Wyatt right there. We saw Tyler Murray as well, still carrying a little bit of that damage. We'll try and get a look to see exactly what happened, but I'm pretty sure this happened coming off of turn 4 or in the middle of turns 3 and 4 on that lap where we saw that battle. We see right there actually Cody Kinsley just gets loose, and then Kyle Benson seems to finish him off there. He had initially gotten loose, and then the front bumper of the 4 just helped the spin continue. See right there, just gets loose on his own, and the 4 had nowhere to go and finishes off at the 93. Fortunately, no one else actually involved in this, so just a 1-car spin.
Right there, Kinsey just got loose off turn 4, similar to what we saw with Murray and Brannigan a little bit earlier. This time collects nobody else, although Kyle Benson does get a piece of damage. I don't believe it'll hurt him too harshly here. See Kinsey going down pit road, Tyler Murray, Shane Wyatt, Jesse Prize, they're all going down pit road as well, as everybody will stay out on the lead lap at this point. So Lautensager's still leading this race, but if that yellow had not come out, if we had stayed green, we may have had a battle for the front spot, because Scott Healy was coming fast, and he needed to try and push away that 13. He was right there. He was getting the runs off the corner, so he could have made that pass complete. He was just waiting for the moment to do so, and maybe a little impatient. He's sucking his nose already inside under yellow.
Yeah, I mean, the 64 definitely wants to win this race. He wants to make sure the 13 doesn't win this race, but he also now has the added benefactor of the 52 had gained the spot, so he's definitely trying to keep more cars between them that necessary, at least for the rest of this race in the immediate future. He does not want that 52 to get back to him before the race is over.
We'll try to restack things, get things underway, get things sorted here. With about 37 laps to go, we're riding underneath the safety of the iRacing official pace car. We'll take one more break, but you won't miss a thing here on MaxSpeedTV for the first playoff race of the 2021 Ford iRacing Cup Series from the Richmond Raceway.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Just in time for the restart, lap 233. Quick start by Craig Lansauger as Scott Healy has to fight for position. Here comes Dalton Tucker, Joe Sanchez underneath 3 wide as Kyle Benson tries to make a move on the third groove. 3 wide out of turn 2.
3 wide for the 4th position. The battle's on for second. Tucker now on the outside of Scott Healy. We saw these two make contact a little bit earlier. We'll see just how they're able to race each other now. But it looks like Tucker has the advantage. He'll take over the second spot.
And now he has Lansauger right in his foresight. Here comes Kyle Benson to the inside. And a big comeback for him tonight. Right, get around this playoff driver. He's not going to have the space. And now Tucker going to put this pressure on the 13. How long will it take for Tucker to get by? Or does Lansauger have enough to fend him off?
A battle for the lead with just over 30 laps to go. We'll see how he races the non-playoff driver. We'll see, does the win matter more? Does finishing the race matter more? You want to battle for the win, but if you're a non-playoff driver, you also don't want to get into them. We see a little bit of contact a little bit further behind with a couple of cars standing out on the back straightaway. Healy settling into the 3rd spot. Benson under fire by Edward Scherner, and now the 52 continuing to close the gap to the 13. How long does it take him to get around?
And we've seen Tucker utilize the second groove. He diamonds it back to the inside where the yellow line sits, tries to get the run, puts as much gas out of the exit of the corner, and tries to get the advantage, especially off turn 2. That's where he's able to set up a pass to turn 3. And Francisco and I, we talked about this under break, as now the laps are starting to wind down, that Tucker needed to make this move quickly, and with the way he tries to pass drivers with the methodical method that he uses, he's going to need some valuable time to do it. He uses enough time, and he's going to dive to the inside for the race lead.
It also was attributed the restart he got. He got a fantastic restart from 4th and was able to get ahead of 3rd immediately. Oh, he had to check up right there. The 13 had to check up. That's going to give the 52 an advantage into 1.
They'll slide back into 1. Tucker going to have an advantage down low. 13 with a run up high. Back side by side to the back straightaway. This in turn is going to help Scott Healy's case, because if they stay this way for long, Healy is going to be able to pounce. But at the moment, Tucker going to clear himself to the race lead with less than 30 laps to go.
Lansauger will not try the crossover, and he's struggling right now in corner exit. Right here, he just can't get on the throttle as much as the 52 does. You see right there, and he just pulls in the entire way. So the 13 struggling, and it's especially evident here in 3 and 4. He just tries, but he can't. You see right there, he hit the apron, and right there is where the 52 is beating him off. You see he gains about a 10th there just on the straightaway alone.
But it's so close here, and Tucker going to try and pull away. Healy trying to reel him down for second, and hopefully have a shot with about 27 laps to go. So a nice battle a little bit late, or a little bit before on this restart, with Joe Sanchez, Kyle Benson, Edward Scherner. They have now a single file themselves out, as you see Cody Kinsey with a spin earlier. He's back up to P7. Eric Schaffer, we see him back in the mix. He's going to guide to the inside for the top 10.
And there to the inside of Cody Kinsey, see Joe Sanchez right there, who was running a little bit closer to the front of the field earlier in the event. Has been struggling over the backside of the race right now, but still carrying a solid enough race. Eric Schaffer with a solid recovery in this race, who had wrecked in the middle of green flag pit stops and then had another incident later on. Had left the race at one point and now is back on the lead lap. So an up and down night, but it could end on a high for him.
Definitely will. You see him there. There's Mark Brannigan. This is for P7 right now, or P8 rather, behind Cody Kinsey. I think the 38's going to have the run up top as they try to settle themselves out. There's Scott Healy running in third. Lautensager still to second. The gap has increased to about 7/10 between Lautensager and Dalton Tucker. So right now, it may just become a battle of playoff wits and just letting Dalton Tucker run away with the win, because even if they can't get the win, second is still a lot of good points, and if you're able to get that over everybody else, that's going to mean so much. So maybe for Lautensager and Scott Healy, it's less about this win, it's more so for second place.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the more stronger battles for second that we'll see throughout the season. These guys know that every point matters, and two playoff drivers, it's basically +1 for the one in third and -1 for the one in second. So it's really a 2-point swing for every playoff driver that you do make a pass on like this. So we'll have to see if Scott Healy does make the pass on Craig Lautensager. They're both losing time to the 52, but I don't think if this race does stay green flag that they'll be able to catch up to him. We've seen too much pace out of the 52 for anyone to really run him down on the long run. He's the only driver we've seen really pull out to a big lead. So unless there's a late caution, this race is probably going to be his.
He comes across the line with 22 laps to go here from the Richmond Raceway. Laps take down very quickly at this track as Tucker continues to hold control of this race. Edward Scher might put himself in this fight if these two slow themselves down. Kyle Benson, we saw him with a remarkable pickup from what happened earlier in the race.
Caution.
But with 20 laps to go, caution gets waived.
Just as we were talking about it, Kenneth, and the commentator's jinx is always existing around these parts, and with 20 laps to go, it was not safe, and that's going to set us up for a short run on this restart. And now that begs the question, does anybody stay out on this restart or take 2 tires?
That's going to be very big here. We'll try to get a replay of where the caution was thrown and how it happened. And it was right here. Playoff driver Christopher Bishop. We've seen him struggle all night long. Still holding his own. And then right here, gets loose off turn 2. We've seen this so many times tonight. It's into the inside wall. Has no control of his car. He's a passenger. Big hit to that sort of opening there in the wall. And that's exactly what it is. Very slow on the racetrack. That's the cause of yellow. Main concern is, does everybody pit? The answer is yes.
They are all coming down pit road. It'll come down to the pit crew, Kenneth. And we talked about this earlier in the race. Who has a good job coming in, coming out. We saw 52 have a good entry. Look at the gap that he has behind him. That may help him here, but we'll just have to see just how the pit stop comes down to as far as how long everybody takes. We know it's a little bit random, so who will have the best pit stop?
We'll see who does. Jacks are up on either side of either race car. Seemed as though between the top 5, no mishaps, trying to slow down for their stall. Tucker, though, will get out first. Lautensager, Healy, Scher, Benson. Nice battle there behind Benson between Sanchez and Schaffer. But Tucker gets pretty much the obvious choice up front. Craig Lautensager going to hold second. Scott Healy going to be starting on the inside of row 2. So this is going to make things more interesting here, Francisco, because we saw the field slowly separate. We saw them fairly clutched up together from around second on back. But here's going to be the biggest part, because we've seen restarts be so crucial into the way positions were handled. We saw Dalton Tucker himself make a move on the restart on the outside of row 2. How will this help guys like Lautensager, Healy, or Scher, maybe even Benson if they can pull this off correctly?
It really comes down to how well can you react to the leader going. We know that the restart is on your race leader as soon as the pace car comes down. So how well they can react to the 52 accelerating will determine what they're able to do going into turn 1. Good timing reactions could keep you side by side with him if you're Craig Lautensager. And if you restart behind him, you can maybe gain a spot on a car on the opposite lane.
That's going to be big, because we saw Tucker grab a couple positions and then after grab the lead after starting in 4th, the outside of row 2. The driver who's going to be in that position is going to be the 20 of Edward Scher. He's not a playoff driver, but of course he wants a race win no matter what. Between these two right here, maybe even bring it 3 in the playoff picture, Lautensager, Healy, and Kyle Benson. These 3 have been at it for pretty much most of this race. Lautensager having a big charge through the late portions, leading a lot of laps. Benson being up front, struggling with the race car in the long run. And Scott Healy, who has won 2 short track races this season, trying to look for a 3rd, as he's going to start in the inside again, Francisco, we're going to base it off of what the leader does. And the last time, Launsauger got a run as soon as the pace car dipped down pit road. So now it comes down to what Dalton Tucker is going to do, whether he stacks the field up, he waits a little bit, or whether he just does the same thing that Launsauger does and just wait for the pace car to come down, make that left, and then immediately step on the gas pedal.
And the good thing about waiting is that it keeps everybody guessing. So if you can keep everybody guessing, especially when there's a pattern of going early, that can possibly help you get a good enough lead. And with this little laps to go, you might want to try to do that. The only thing is, you don't want to do it too early to show your hand for a late restart, because maybe someone could adapt to that if we get another caution and sort of time it better. So you want to try and keep everybody guessing, but the only way to do that is by going at different points. So we'll have to see just what he does here as his pace car gets ready to turn on.
Well, here we go. 15 laps to go when they cross the start-finish line. Dalton Tucker in control. Launsauger to the inside. Pace car comes down. Green flag waves in the air. And a good start by Dalton Tucker to lead them back to turn 1. What does Launsauger and Healy do as they head to the first corner on the racetrack? Healy with a nose down low to the inside.
Sure, they're going to be battling for second, and this is exactly what the 52 wants to see, though. The 13 will get clear of Scott Healy. Healy won't give up. We'll have to see just what makes of this battle. Kyle Benson now trying to take over the 4th spot. A little bit of contact almost between those two, and he may lose a spot to Joe Sanchez now for the 5th position, as the 52 now about 3/10 ahead of the 13.
And he goes a little bit loose at the corner, so now Joe Sanchez is going to try and pounce the 4, wobbling out of turn 2. Here's Launsauger and Healy, the battle for the playoff supremacy with about 14, now 13 laps to go. Loose goes Healy. He's able to save it, but look at all that track position getting washed away. The 64 with a rare mistake, and now here comes the rest of the field.
Not so rare, Kenneth. We've seen the 64 get loose for most of the race, and it hasn't happened too much on the backside, but it has happened throughout the evening. We've seen a lot of drivers struggling on that part of the racetrack. Edward Scherner now to second. Joe Sanchez trying to get up to 4th. Well, look at this massive battle. It's one car's going around. That's Cody Kinsey.
Cody Kinsey around. Does a spring of yellow flags. He slows across the racetrack. Yes, it does. Waiting for the call with 12 laps to go. Caution flag gets waved. And what has been a counter on incidents much like this. And Kinsey goes around. Kinsey with a slap to the inside wall. And we again rack the field up. And we'll have it with less than 10 laps to go.
It's going to be interesting. I feel maybe some people will come down pit road to try and just do something different to the 52. I mean, we saw Tucker have a good job on these restarts. You see right there, Kinsey had a little bit of a problem. We saw right up there, Healy and Scherner almost made contact, but Kinsey right here, right when they slide back up into the actual racing line above the yellow line, that's when iRacing threw the caution for this 93 machine. So that is not what the 52 wanted to see, but it's already happened, and now the caution flag is out. And there we see a couple cars coming down pit road. We'll have to see just how many and who did to see if that's able to make any sort of difference. You see Eric Schaffer up there. We see Shane Wyatt up there. Not too many of the front runners came down pit road, and if you were to make this sort of strategy call on sort of doing the opposite of what the leader does, you need everybody to sort of gang up on him to really make it work, because otherwise this does play into the 52's hands.
Yeah, I don't believe that everybody here is willing to trade off the track position for fresh tires, especially with the amount of laps that are left, because if a clean restart happens, you're going to be stuck in traffic. You're going to have to make these moves. And if you're only about 8 to 9 laps worn out on your tires are still relatively fresh here on this run comparative to some of the longer ones, or the longest one that we had here tonight, which was over about 80 laps or so before the yellow came out. So now it's in the final stint. Nobody's going to go down pit road within the top 10 or so. We saw the trifecta go down. That was Shane Wyatt, Tyler Murray, and Eric Schaffer. All three of them got their service. All three of them seem to be out and ready on the racetrack with fresh tires and possibly some fuel, although everybody can make it all the way to the end. And again, this will rely on how Dalton Tucker is able to handle this restart. He did it fairly well the last time by, but like we've seen before, Francisco, one small mistake, one little awareness blip, and all of a sudden you can have the driver starting on the inside or outside, wherever they are. They can be right with you when you go to turn 1. It's just all about how you handle it.
Yeah, the restarts definitely are going to start mattering more and more. And who knows? Maybe this is still not the last caution of the race. We've seen several overtime finishes in the last couple of weeks. Who's to say that this can't be another one of those, especially given the short track nature of Richmond International Raceway? But we'll have to see. The 52 will most likely take over the outside lane, so I'll put the 13 inside of the front row, right in front of the 55 of Joe. Excuse me, the 55 of. I just had a blunder, but either way, Joe Sanchez. My apologies, but either way, if he's been getting good enough restarts. If he does take the 52 to the inside going into turn one, as right now they still haven't taken the one to green, and he is on the inside lane. They'll probably swap before they get back here. But if he does get a good enough launch on that inside and ends up being behind Lautensanger, he can maybe try to take him 3 wide going into one. And as they come across the line to take the one to green, the 52 has chosen the inside, Kenneth.
This is a different decision. We saw him choose the outside multiple times on the restart. It seems as though he's going to choose the lower line as we go back green. Lautensanger going to stay to his outside. Joe Sanchez going to give him help with Scott Healy on the outside of row 2. Edward Scher and Kyle Benson will be up to 6th. Jesse Prize with a nice move up to 7th. Mark Brannigan Jr. to 8th. Nicholas Zaduti to 9th. Cody Kinsey, involved in that last incident, will cap off the top 10. Coming to the final laps here at the Richmond Raceway, the first playoff race for the 2021 4-Wide Racing Cup Series campaign. It's between Dalton Tucker and Craig Lautensanger as we head back green. Pace car going to make its way down at pit road. 52 on the gas. We're back under green in the final laps. How intense does this get?
13 got a solid start. Could have been better, but he's going to be close enough to the 52. He goes way up the racetrack in turns 1 and 2. That'll give the 55 a chance on the inside. 2 non-playoff drivers now trying to battle these playoff guys to play spoiler.
Joe Sanchez making a move down low. He's going to push underneath Scott Healy, but not enough to make the pass complete on Craig Lautensanger. 5 laps to go from the Richmond Raceway with Tucker out in front. He loves to see this in his rearview mirror as these two go side by side. Sanchez with a wobble. Sanchez still down low to the 13.
Using the inside lane to his advantage. The 13's been struggling on corner exit for some of these corners. And Edward Scherner now catching up to this group. They're going to be in a 4-car battle for the second position, and 5 cars if they're not careful. And Kyle Benson decides to join the fray. But this is exactly what the 52 wants to see. A 3-wide battle for second. And around goes Scott Healy.
Healy around. Sanchez on the back straightaway. Caution flag with 4 laps to go from Richmond. And Scott Healy gets the damage. Unbelievable as he was trying to push it 3 wide at the exit of 2. Sanchez tried to defend. And all of a sudden, this puts us into green-white checkered territory. Take a look at this. As they were going around. Watch as these two go side by side. 64 tries to move, but oh, it was the 55 that got loose, fishtailed it, and then got right into the 64 as they were coming out of the exit of 2. Here it is once more. 55 gets out of shape, gets into the 64. They both go hitting the inside wall. And this is a tough blow, Francisco to Healy, who was running so well all night and now has to play catch up.
Yeah, and it sucks for the 64 of Scott Healy to have this happen to him at this point in the race. I mean, I think he still looks like he's pretty intact, but he's lost all his track position with the amount of cars that have ended up on the lead lap due to all the recent yellows. So right now he's actually running in 13th position right now. Well, that's not terrible, but that's at least 10 points that he's lost out from where he was running before, and that may end up making a difference, Kenneth. 1 point can make a huge difference in the playoffs. We see it every single year, and it sometimes sounds like a broken record when you hear Steve Letarte and Jeff Burton and Rick Allen talk about the 1 point making a difference, but it's true. I mean, we've seen so many instances where a tie happens at the end of the round and you don't have the tiebreaker, and maybe 1 point here or there could have made a difference, and it really ends up being true. So being the first race of this round of 4 races, if he ends up finishing outside the top 10, those 7 or 8 points that he lost here tonight could very well just come to show later on in the latter portions of the playoffs.
Well, this is only going to mean very big things for Dalton Tucker, and again, he's posed in that situation where he has to get a good restart has to stay in the lead, has to keep it defenseless from anybody else. We'll try to be in the pace car. We'll see if we get the one to green this time by. But we'll have a restart with 2 laps to go and a 2-lap dash to end this race. If we get another yellow before the white flag is displayed, we'll rack them up and do it once more. I believe we have 3 attempts before it all gets burned out. And then, of course, if we burn all 3 attempts, if we get a yellow and we don't get to the white flag, race will be completed. Field will be frozen. Whoever's in front will be the winner of the race behind the iRacing official pace car. If not, we'll have those 3 attempts. If we get to the white flag, anything that happens will not count towards cautions, and the leader will just have to go all the way to the end. They'll race back to the line. Simple as that. So for Dalton Tucker, it's only going to be about 2 laps or so. And I believe here, he's going to switch it up again, Francisco. The outside lane gets chosen once more.
And that's those mind games, trying to keep everybody else guessing, not knowing where you're going to go and which lane you're going to go. They have to make an adjustment mentally coming to this final lap before going green and deciding what they're going to do when they see the 52 going, or when they think they see him going. You almost have to sort of, and I know this is not how the restarts work, but because of the way it is, you sort of have to try and guess where he goes. And if you guess wrong, that might end up being a penalty if it goes too early. But if you guess right, that may end up working out right, because we've seen the 52 go early almost every single time. So if the 13 guesses right and goes early enough, it may end up working in his favor.
Well, we'll see what happens. 52-13 on the front row. Benson and Schur going to pounce if anything goes awry with 2 laps to go. First green white checkered attempt will be under the books after they cross the stripe. Pace cars down. Tucker's underway. We're back under green on a green white checkered attempt.
How aggressive does the 13 get to try and go for the win? Kyle Benson trying to move up into third. He's going to battle Edward Turner on the inside lane. They're going to be side by side for third. Craig Lautensager settling into second. What does he do to try and go for a win?
And right now, some drivers trying to go for position, but as they cross the stripe, Dalton Tucker will take the white flag one more time around the Richmond Raceway in this quarter-mile track, or 3/4-mile track, as he comes in right now to turn 2. No problems for him and the rest of the field. And as the 52, who dominated all night long, got put back in traffic, but it will not matter. Off turn 4, the 52 of Dalton Tucker will take his first win in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from Richmond in his first start.
And you saw a wreck there coming to the start-finish line. We'll have to see just who was involved in that, as that may have affected several positions back there. I know I saw the 0 around, and I think Scott Healy was somewhere in that mix. We'll just have to get a second look at it, as there's your race winner. In his first outing, Kenneth, in his first start, he does grab the win, and he'll be celebrating.
There's Scott Healy, a hard-fought race to the end with him. And the 52 of Dalton Tucker will burn it down in front of the virtual fans here at Richmond. What a fantastic race it was for him. We'll try to get a second look at what happened coming off turn 4, where the positions may have filtered themselves through. We'll try to take one more look at the replay. And we saw Jesse Price go around. At the end, you saw him go around by himself. There's Vizzuti with contacts. There's Shane Wyatt. And that was after they crossed the start-finish line.
I don't think that impacted spots. We'll try and see here in slow motion just to see.
I believe maybe with Tyler Murray there in the 8 machine. That was probably the only position affected here. 0-0 goes around. Drivers come by.
And Vizzuti got him.
Yeah, Vizzuti gets the 0 car and the 8 machine. Not much where to go.
Wow. I'm surprised that did not impact any positions there.
Well, it certainly didn't. You see the 52 lined up at the Richmond Raceway logo in fitting fashion as he wins here from Henrico County, Virginia. We'll take a look at your full field results before we get to driver interviews. Dalton Tucker in his first race here in this series captures the win over Craig Lautensager. Fantastic race by Lautensager as a playoff driver, and finishes just 3/10 behind the race leader. Edward Schur will cap off the top 3. With Kyle Benson, nice recovery after a mishap through the middle of this race. He ends up in 4th with Mark Brannigan lining up the top 5. Eric Schaffer, will come back to 6th. Nicholas Vizzuti will end up 7th with Jesse Price spinning across the line to 8th. Tyler Murray just behind him in 9th. Shane Wyatt will cap off the top 10 tonight from Richmond.
Scott Healy will just miss out on the top 10, finishing 11th after the late spin with Joe Sanchez, who will finish in the 12th position. Justin Webb, who had a lot of trouble here tonight, will get a lead lap finish. Cody Kinsey as well will get a lead lap finish. Matthew Jorgensen will finish in the 15th position. We saw him have his troubles through most of the night, ended up getting a faster pair late. Christopher Bishop, playoff driver, not the night he wanted, will come home in 16th. Tyler Warner, another playoff driver with his fair share of troubles, 52 laps down in 17th. Justin Mons, who we saw have pace early on, will finish 18th. Roman Long in 19th, and Ricky Rosner will be in the 20th position, 131 laps down. As we move on to the final page of the results, Pete Bruni, who got stuck on the pit road attenuator, will finish in 21st. Robert Parrott will finish in 22nd. Brandon Gillis in 23rd. Austin Reedy, who had his fair share of speed early on, then disconnected, and will finish in 24th with Cole Shugru in the 25th position, who did not start the race.
Those are your entire results here from the Richmond Raceway, and as we go through, we have our chance to talk with your race winner. Dalton Tucker, in his first start here in this series, goes for the race win at the end of it all. We'll take a moment to talk with the driver of the 52. We'll bring him in from victory lane. We'll see how he feels about getting his first win in this series. Dalton, what a race this was, I think, for you, leading over 150 laps en route to a victory here at Richmond Raceway. Walk us through how this went for you, because I know that you dominated most of it. You had a lot of chances in clean air. Then you kind of get put in dirty air. You have to fight your way back to the front. How did that go for you at the end of this one?
It was honestly a roller coaster of a race. Led a good bit at the beginning. Pitted under that green flag. Came out. Got stuck behind the leader, but I got the lucky dog. Well, when it gave me the lucky dog, everybody behind me got the wave around, but it stuck me at the end, so I had to fight through everybody, which at Richmond definitely isn't easy. I'm sure y'all saw how hard passing was, and luckily got back to the front. Had a little mishap with Scott, and it is what it is. I don't want to say too much, but it was a good race, and good first race with the league. A little bit of cautions, but overall it was pretty good.
And it definitely went well for you, because you led so many laps tonight. You were able to push yourself up front. What came so well with this Richmond Raceway that you were kind of able to pounce on everybody else and take the speed away? Well, what seemed to be fitting for you here at this track that went everything perfectly at this point?
It honestly seemed like I could roll 1 and 2 a lot better than most of the guys, and I could carry that speed down the back stretch. And 3 and 4, it's so loose coming off. A lot of guys were either driving too hard, burning up the right rear, and it would just hurt like over a course of a run. And I tried to baby that as much as I could, and it basically allowed my tires to stay good, so I could have that run coming off of 2.
Well, it certainly worked out for you in the end. You capitalize on the green-white checkered restarts, and you take your first win here in this series. I think one quick question before we let you thank all the people that make it happen. Are we expecting seeing you coming back next Wednesday night when we go to Indianapolis?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there for that one. I love Indy. It's a real technical track that's extremely line sensitive, and you can get real aero tight, so it has a good strategy, and I love that track.
Well, that's always good news to see. A fantastic performance here on track tonight at Richmond. But before we let you go, Dalton, is there anybody you'd just like to give a shout out to? Any thanks you want to give to any teams, sponsors, or anybody else that makes it happen for you?
I definitely got to give a shout out to Shane and Matt Jorgensen. I think it's the first race for all of us, and they ran good, got caught up in some trouble, but overall it was a good race for our little team. And just appreciate you guys doing this. Y'all put together a great broadcast every week as a whole for Max Speed, and I love going back and watching them. Just appreciate everybody in the league, and for as difficult as the track was, I thought everybody did a pretty good job.
Well, we certainly thank you for the support, Dalton. We congratulate you on your win here tonight from Richmond, and of course, we look forward to seeing you from the Brickyard next Wednesday night.
Man.
Dalton Tucker takes his first race win of the season in almost dominating fashion, leading 161 laps en route to the checkered flag. Here's a story that'll probably be very important for these playoffs. A playoff driver moves into second and is able to hold on to it. That's the 13 of Craig Lonsauger as he's trackside with Francisco Bacallao.
Well, Craig, we saw you have a lot of speed here tonight. Unfortunately, you come home second, but you are the lead playoff driver. Just take us through your evening.
I guess, yeah, overall, pretty damn good evening, considering I was the first playoff driver. Really not much you can do when somebody shows up their first time and just has that kind of speed. But, yeah, other than that, I was a little bit disappointed I couldn't have locked a ticket to the final race, but I put myself in a good position to get there anyways, because I've got our Indy coming up, which I've been pretty good at in the past, and then can't remember what the last race is in this first round of the playoffs, but I'm pretty good there too.
Yeah, the last two races after Indianapolis are at the Kansas and Kentucky Speedway.
Okay. Yeah, those will be kind of a little bit tough as a 1.5, as it kind of lets a lot of people back into it. But yeah, I think I have a good path to the next round. But yeah, it's just good to go out there and execute. I needed the 64 to hold up the 52 a little longer. I could have got the win, but I can't really complain. I just had nothing for the 52 when he caught up.
Yeah, he had a lot of speed here tonight, and so did you. You did lead 73 laps, so no slouch effort from yourself. And, moving on to Indianapolis, you said you feel comfortable there. And what do you think the main challenge is going to be, given that you've gotten the second place finish here tonight and the points will work itself out and you'll most likely end up probably top of the leaderboard? What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge at Indianapolis?
Really, I think just tires. That course is that oval is basically a cheese grater, and you'd think the draft would come into play, but more it does. But once you burn up your tires, it doesn't matter how good of a draft you have on somebody, you start getting killed in those straightaways. So if I can just run smart and keep my stuff clean and stay out of incidents, I think I'll have a good chance for a top 5 and really put myself in an even better position to make the next round of the playoffs.
And who do you have to thank, Craig? We know that you have a couple sponsors here where you're running this this Navy scheme with Memorial Day weekend just having passed, and we know you have a good team and teammates around you. So just we'll give you the floor here.
No, I mean, I don't really have any personal affiliation to AMD or the 103rd fighter squadron, but no, I kind of just liked running that scheme because I kind of knew about that squadron for a long time. But I guess in the end, it's just a throwback to all the veterans who've served, and just me making a cool scheme like that is just a way to honor them. So, I mean, all I have to really thankful for is people who went and fought for our freedoms. So, I guess that's what my scheme says tonight.
We appreciate that, Craig, and we wish you luck going into Indianapolis, and best of luck and congratulations on the P2 effort.
Thank you, sir.
That's Craig Lonsauger coming home second, the first playoff driver in the running order before you get to fourth place, Kyle Benson. But we'll talk with the driver that sits behind Craig Lonsauger at the start-finish line. That is the 20 of Edward Schur as we catch up with him finishing in P3. Well, Edward, we talked to each other last Wednesday. We went to the Daytona International Speedway. You come up with, again, another top 3 here at Richmond. How was this in sort of a different retrospective to what you had at Daytona last week? Because I know passing was difficult. This track was difficult. I know a lot of drivers struggled with that specifically.
Yeah, it was very eventful and really exhausting. My legs are killing me, actually, from using the gas and the brakes a lot. But it was a little tricky to pass, yeah. My car, I studied a lot this week, even the truck race last night and today with practice, running the bottom consistently. And I always been a bottom feeder no matter where I race, wherever. I'm not really like the kind of person that likes to run the top or middle, but I found a couple ways to run the middle and top, but every time it was like really sketchy and a lot of people were wrecking based off of that. And basically I was just trying to stay out of trouble all night, and we did a really good job with the 20 team, and I'm very happy with a P3. It's not where we're getting there with the wins and stuff, but I mean, I'll take the consistent finishes week in and week out until we get the win. But all in all, I'm happy with how tonight went.
Well, certainly consistency never hurts at all, but you led 21 laps here. And you had that moment where you were kind of going out of the pit strategy. You were one of the last ones to plan to go down pit road. And then the yellow came out. You had a chance to lead up front. How different was this car in clean air when you were kind of had the vantage point up front versus kind of being trapped in traffic where it seemed as though you were in the hornet's nest in the final 3 laps of this event?
Oh, honestly, it was pretty equal, to be honest. I mean, I did have to lift at a couple different points for some people, due to how they were entering the corner and exiting. But the clean air did help a lot with me, turning wise. It was very tight in the center on entry, which with the clean air helped it rotate the car a lot better, but it just made it a little bit more looser to where I had to put a lot more steering into it. But all in all, it felt good. I was actually coming in to pit that lap when the caution came out, which was crazy, and it was pretty interesting how that all panned out. But I was happy to lead some laps. I knew it wasn't gonna last. The 52, in my opinion, had the best car the whole night between him and Craig, and all in all, a good race for him. I felt like we could have got with Craig, but he was just defending really well and using the air to his advantage really well, and it would have took a lot more for me to get up there. But all in all, I'm happy with how we finished tonight.
Well, 3rd place for you, Edward, here tonight from the Richmond Raceway. Before we let you go, is there anybody you just like to thank? Any teams, sponsors, or anybody that makes it happen for you in this series?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Rowdy Energy team, Team Razor, the Going Racing podcast. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube and everywhere else. My friends, my family. I appreciate Reedy, Tyler, Kyle Benson, Scott Healy, all the fellas. I appreciate them every single week. Yeah, and basically that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for broadcasting it always and putting on a show for us. It's really fun to come out here and put on a show for you guys.
Well, we certainly thank you for the support, Edward. And, of course, always in grace goes the Rowdy Energy ally, almost Jimmy Johnson kind of paint scheme ally, Alex Phillip. Well, thank you, Edward. Certainly thank you for your time. We congratulate you on your 3rd place finish. And, of course, we look forward to seeing you for the Brickyard next week. I know that's going to be a very exciting one for sure.
Yep, appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.
Edward Sure comes back to 3rd. I don't think I've recovered from making Jimmy Johnson jokes anytime soon. But for the moment, we conclude our coverage and our driver interview section here as Dalton Tucker comes away with this win. Francisco, we started the first race of the playoffs, and who knew how big of a factor non-playoff drivers are going to be? We had everybody singled down to 10 after Daytona. We kind of saw the widespread of drivers in the regular season, and when you cut things down to only 10 running for a championship, it makes things so different because then you have drivers like this, drivers like Dalton Tucker just goes out and dominates races, tries to go for wins with nothing to lose, and then you have the fantastic battles between playoff competitors. How do we even see this going forward when we go to Indianapolis next week?
And you mentioned that it's just going to be a battle of playoff drivers versus non-playoff drivers. And you go from a track like Richmond to a track like Indianapolis. There's stark contrast. You have a 3/4 mile flat track at Richmond, and then you have Indianapolis, which actually has less banking than this racetrack. So, but is so much bigger. It's 2.5 miles. It's just a historic racetrack for both NASCAR and IndyCar, and even Formula One. So, a lot of history at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's iconic in its way. It has its own way of being run on the oval. When you run with the NASCAR Cup Series machines there, the draft is going to be important. But also, as you heard Craig Lontsonger say, you have to save your tires. With the way those flat corners are, if you don't save them right, that's really going to punish the right front tire. And every corner is different. It's not like how we call it turns 1 and 2 here, where it's one long sweeping corner and we just call the entry 1 and the exit 2. No, it's 4 actual corners. You have one corner, a little straightaway, the next corner, then the long back straightaway, then turn 3 with another little straightaway and turn 4. So that's what's unique about Indianapolis and the way it's laid out. It's almost like a rectangle, if you will. So interesting track to have in the playoffs. It's definitely going to be have a fun twist for us, at least, to sort of commentate and see how these playoff drivers sort of handle the 80-lap race that we'll have there next weekend. Before we go, Kenneth, I do want to mention, almost fittingly, the Utah Jazz are going to win their game against the Memphis Grizzlies and advance to the second round of the playoffs.
Oh, we can never escape the NBA when the playoffs are on, can we? Well, we'll end this race for now. Again, you mentioned Indianapolis next Wednesday night. That's going to be a fantastic one for sure. We'll step to the 2.5-mile Brickyard, the capital of the racing world. We'll have coverage next Wednesday night for that race. on June 9th, 2021. That coverage will begin at 9:10 p.m. Eastern, of course, right here on MaxSpeedTV, where you'll find Francisco and I and Kenneth Bueno on the call before we move to Kansas, Kentucky, and then cut it down to 5 for the top drivers who will face off at the Charlotte Oval for the 2021 Four Wide Racing Cup Series Championship. Well, that concludes our coverage of tonight's race from the Richmond Raceway. Gotta give a big shout out to all the people that make it happen, for Tyler Murray, Craig Lautensager, Scott Healy, all the people of the Race Council that make things possible each and every week. And on behalf of all of us at MaxSpeedTV, and for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacalhau, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from the Richmond Raceway, and a big congratulations to Dalton Tucker, his first win of 2021.